Hello, fellow homebrewers. JP here, and I want to introduce to you the brand new Brew Built X1 Conical Series available at More Beer. More Beer sells the highest standard in homebrewing equipment, and the Brew Built Conicals are just that. They're made from mirror-polished 304 stainless steel, and they come with loads of features that you and I have been looking for. They have a full 2-inch bottom dump valve, which will eliminate your clogging issues, while the sturdy base includes 4 reinforced legs, just like those big Pro tanks do. More Beer also carries the Brew Built line of options and add-ons like casters, pressure kits, and even external glycol chillers. So you can find out more about the new Brew Built X1 Conical Unitanks by going over to morebeer.com for detailed videos on the entire line of Brew Built Conicals. You can trust Brew Built with your next fermentation, and you can trust More Beer to find the right conical for you. Brew Built at morebeer.com.
Home brewers, craft brewers, beer lovers, beer drinkers.
Get ready for an all-new experience in information exchange and beer culture.
Your only source for live beer radio that brings expert brewers from around the globe
right to your home.
You're not just listening to broadcasters, it's the Brewcasters
on the Brewing Network.
Welcome back to the studio and your own home where you happen to be listening to us. It's the Brewing Network, and it's our live Sunday show once again. Woohoo. With us today we have back in the studio, and we're grateful to have him, Jamil Zainasheff, joining us once again. The most award-winning home brewer on the planet. Is that right?
Yeah, he's up there.
I think we established last time that he was. Like, we were going through his awards, and it's unbelievably
the guy.
Are you going to be one of those guys, Jamil, who writes amazing books like later in your life that will just be passed on for generations about homebrewing, like Papazian type of books?
A tell-all book.
Yeah,
yeah. I started writing articles for some of the magazines. I really enjoy that. I was actually an English major in college. So.
Okay, nice. So that's a good start for you. I might write the unauthorized biography of Jamil Zainasheff,
yeah,
so I can make up some dirt and I'll have my version and then you can have yours.
Sounds good.
Both will push the other one to sell, that's for sure.
Oh yeah,
because people want to know my story. I don't know why, just because they'll want to know what kind of crap I make up.
You'll market each other.
Yeah. It'll work. All right, so welcome to the show. We do have Jamil. He's going to be hanging out the whole time. I know the schedule said Moonlight Brewing, but we just had a scheduling conflict with them. Something came up. Nothing malicious or anything else. They're rescheduled, I think, for late October.
Yeah.
So they'll be back. So Moonlight Brewing will be in late October, and we'll keep you up to date about that. And I got to update our events page because we do have a few new guests coming in.
Yes. You like that email I sent you?
Yeah, I did. And I appreciate it too, actually.
Cool. I figured you would.
Yeah.
Every little bit helps. You know.
John sends me an email that just has this list of all the new people that he booked that I haven't put up. So I'll update the events page Tuesday. I think that's my next day off. Which reminds me, I had a bad day yesterday.
What happened?
Well, I started this new job, and I'm not going to name the brewery. I said that last week. I wasn't sure why I didn't want to name the brewery last week.
It's okay.
But this week I'm not going to. I know why, because all I'm going to do is bitch about this particular brewery. But, I just... sometimes jobs are just jobs, and you go to work and you don't want to be at work. And whenever I'm at a job, all right, my job right now is serving. I'm either bartending or waiting tables, and bartending isn't that bad. It's an okay gig. Waiting tables is bad. It's real bad. If you ever wonder why waiters get tips and why that whole system is in process and why they don't just get paid better and all that kind of stuff, it's because the job's real bad.
Yeah.
That's why. I mean, that's ultimately the thing. And anyway, those of you at home who work for the weekend, your weekend warriors, and you go to work to pay your bills, and then you live the rest of your life sort of around that, and unfortunately, too many people have to do that. But it's kind of the way it is sometimes. It's definitely the way it is for me right now. But I go to work, and you do these jobs that don't require much brain power, like waiting tables and. So the whole time, my head is elsewhere, and particularly my head's on the Brewing Network, and I'm thinking of all these ideas of what we can do to get better and how I can add content and all about the webpage. And I'm doing all this as somebody's telling me their order. Right?
Whoops.
And then, either I'm forgetting what they told me or maybe the kitchen is messing up their order. So yesterday, just the entire day, I ended up with a 9-hour shift, which is ridiculous. No, servers don't work 9-hour shifts, and there's a reason for that too, because you're running back and forth, and you have you have a lunch which lasts about 3 hours, and you have a dinner which lasts about 4 hours, and that's it. Everything in between is downtime and side work and prepping,
Right.
And so I'm there for 9 hours because for some reason this particular brewery that I work at, and this is the Ale House division, has a Saturday shift where you go in at 1 o'clock, so you're there for the lunch, and you stay till 9 o'clock, so you're there for the dinner. And I don't know why.
You didn't know that?
I didn't know. I saw 1 o'clock on the schedule. I just started there, right?
Okay.
So I see 1 o'clock on the schedule, and I go, okay, great. I've got a lunch shift, which means I'll be home by 4. That's great. I'll go in, make a couple bucks, and I'll come home. Not the case. So I'm there that whole time, and it's just one of those days where the whole day goes wrong. I mess up orders. The kitchen messes up my orders. I have people complain to the manager about me. I'm angry that I'm there for 9 hours. Just like thing after thing after thing, right? I had people, because the kitchen messed up one of their orders on like a $55 bill, they left me $1 tip. I had people who, the ones who complained to the manager that I was rude and unattentive, left me like a 23-cent tip. They paid their bill in cash and actually purposefully left 23 cents over, just to kind of like, to throw it in my face kind of thing. Don't do that. Yeah. If you're at home and you're going out to dinner, and take into account, listen, there are times that your server's just bad, and maybe he's even a schmuck, him or her. That happens. It definitely does. Other times, though, maybe you don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe you don't realize that the kitchen is the one who messed up your order. Whatever happens, try to keep it in mind, and don't leave them 23 cents. Like, it was really all I could do to not go back to the table and say, here's your change.
Arrogant bastard.
But I couldn't because they had already complained. The day was so bad that it's the first job, it's the first time I've ever been at a job where I was about to, I really just almost handed my checkbook to the manager and said, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah,
it's not going to work out. And just walked out on the spot. I'm always I'm pretty thankful for what I have and jobs that I've been given and people who do it. And
you're pretty patient with bullshit too.
I'm patient with that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I'm, any job I've ever left, I give full notice. I mean, I'm even more than a 2-week notice guy. I'm kind of like how long do you need me? Because I got to get out of here and I'll do what you need me to finish up. But this was the first time that I really almost, after getting lectured by a manager on duty who's younger than I am about like points of service and all this stuff, I just, that was about the last straw. Yeah. So, the good news about this entire story, though, is that I came home and I decided, that's it. And I'm pretty much, it's looking like I might be quitting all my jobs and working full-time on the Brewing Network, make it or break it. John. So I might be moving in with you because of that, because I couldn't afford rent or something. Yeah. But it's because I realized what a waste of time. And I'm there, and I'm worried about all my petty problems about not liking my job, and all these people I'm serving are worried about their problems, like they had too much Thousand Island on their hamburger. And meanwhile, there's people in our country right now that, thousands and thousands of people who have been displaced and don't have a home to live in and have no prospect or end in sight of finding a job or a bed to sleep in or clean clothes to put on. And here I am worrying about my thing, and the people I'm serving are worried about their thing, and I'm realizing...
What's the problem about this area?
Yeah, it's that, well, and
too much money.
I think any well-off area, you end up with that sort of thing. Their BMW wasn't running properly. Nothing against people with BMWs. I'm not saying that. The point is, it's easy for all of us to forget what's important and what's not important and what's trivial, and it's easy for us to get caught up in these small things that we get caught up in. Yeah. And after being caught up in that all day long, I came home and I sat here in the studio and I was doing some research and some work for today's show. I just went, I'm just not going to do that. I'm not going to do that anymore. And I'm not going to go to a job that makes me have to dwell on those things. And I'm not going to deal with people who can't get out of their little space long enough to I'm talking yesterday here. Yeah. So, these people are out just, and some of them are young people and some of them are older people, and they're just out having the time of their lives and complaining about these small things, and literally their fellow countrymen are scrambling and kind of clinging to life.
Yeah.
A lot of them, and all
Very
right.
good point.
Point of the story is I'm going to focus on what's important, and right now what I think is important, at least for us and for the Brewing Network, is to develop content and spend more time on this. So I'm not going to do a job that sucks the life out of me and keeps me from adding to the Brewing Network. So I'm going to go back to work, and I'm going to give it another go and see if my new sort of outlook can allow me to do the force field around me and not let that get to me.
Gotta build rhino skin.
Yeah. But if it doesn't work, I'm out of there. And Daniela, you're paying the rent. I'm going to sit at home and work on the Brewing Network 24/7.
Good.
So could mean good things for the Brewing Network and bad things for my bank account.
I could barbecue for you sometime.
That'd be cool. If you want to send your leftovers, I'd appreciate that. Even those of you at home, even if you're in Arkansas or Connecticut, put it in a little like tin foil. It'll make the trip. And put it in the mail. I'll eat it because I'm going to be starving in a couple weeks if that's the way things go.
It's work for Colin. He only does stuff that he enjoys doing.
That's right. Colin Kaminsky, who was in here 2 weeks ago, I think. That's right. He said, and he had this same moment one day where he came home from work and he said, "I'm not doing it anymore, and I'm never going to do a job I don't enjoy." And it has worked for him.
Yep.
But he also admitted that for a good 6 months or so, he was sleeping on somebody's couch and kind of, just barely getting by until he found something that could do it. But
you're a smart guy, so I have faith in you.
Yeah, but sometimes the problem with... See, sometimes that works to my detriment because it keeps me from being able to do these menial jobs that I do because my brain just keeps working. Instead of, I sometimes wish I could just act stupid all day. If I could just walk around the ale house and act stupid like some of the other servers I work with and just do that, I'd probably be a much happier person. But I have trouble doing that, so my wheels are turning all the time, which is what ends up making me miserable at a menial job, But I like Colin's approach, and it has worked for him, and I think it's worked for others. I think it's failed for others.
You should quit your job next week, go to Cal Brew Fest.
I'm out of town anyway.
Oh, that's right.
I'm out of
I
town.
forgot about that.
Class reunion. Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Which I could announce now. I'll do it again at the end of the show. No show next week. For the first time since our air date on June 5th, we will not be doing a Sunday show next week. I apologize for that. What I will try to do... I got a lot of things to do this week, but I'm gonna try. I think I can do it. I'm gonna put together a greatest hits. And you guys all have the archives anyway. If you don't, go to the archive section, you can download them. But I might try to compile a 2-hour or maybe even a 3-hour show of some of our best moments over the past couple months of shows and run that on Sunday. Cool. So, if anything, that will be there. Otherwise, no show next Sunday. We apologize. I'm out of town. I can't avoid it. And we didn't have a guest anyway. Mm-hmm. We couldn't. We had a bunch of conflicts with scheduling, and I think we just need a 1 week break, and we're going to come back fresh and new.
Yes.
So look forward to the week after that.
Well, 3 months straight is pretty intense, so we did a good job.
Yeah, it's all right. I mean, I don't mind. Sunday's not a chore for me at all, but this one I just can't avoid. I'm not in town, and there's no way I can be in town. So,
well, hopefully I'll go to the Cal Brewers Fest.
That will help. Yeah. And so if anybody else is going to the Cal Brewers Fest, look for John and his Brewing Network T-shirt and chat him up. Maybe he'll give you something.
120 breweries.
Really?
Yeah.
It's in Sacramento, right?
Sacramento, yeah.
Okay, Sacramento, California. Look for John there.
Yeah.
Jamil, you're in, where do you live?
Just south of Sacramento, Elk Grove.
Elk Grove, that's right. Are you going to go up to that fest, you think?
I might.
You might check it out?
Yeah.
It's a lot of beers.
I've been there in the past. It's a great festival.
Okay.
And, if I get a chance, I'll definitely be there.
Okay.
We'll
down with John.
Brewing Network show.
Where do they do that? Right on the like the fairgrounds up there, or do you know where it is, John? Convention Center.
Idea.
Not sure.
Cal Brewers is it's usually at Cesar Chavez, but they've been moving it around. I think it might be back at Cesar Chavez.
Okay.
Is it?
I don't know. I still have to get approval from my boss.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so I'm awaiting the email.
I like how you forward me. John sometimes forwards me the emails that he sends to other people that, that don't have anything to do with me.
You kind of mother me sometimes. It's really cute and everything, But I figured this will just kind of eliminate the question.
Right.
It's just my, checking up on you.
Right. It was funny because the email was at him asking his boss if he could have the day off, and he forwarded it to me. No explanation like, hey, Justin, look at this, I did ask for the day off. He just sends a copy of the thing to me. And I'm like, sure, you can have the day off, I don't care. What do you want me to call him for you? I like it though, I think it's funny.
Yeah, right on.
It was funny. Okay, let me finish up this, thing about the rest of our country and Louisiana in particular, because it does pertain to the show, and it pertains to some of our users. I was looking through our forum, and we've got a few members from Louisiana and from the surrounding areas and states. One of them is from Baton Rouge. Actually, I think is an EMT out of Baton Rouge, and I'm wondering what he's doing now and how he's doing and what kind of hard work he's got going on, actually. And I did a small posting on the forum. I don't know that we're in a position to I don't know what the Brewing Network can do. I just want to make the point that our heart goes out to not only our users, but everyone. But in particular, I just was looking through our particular members who have been active on our forum, and our heart goes out to you. And I'm deeply regretful of what's happening, not only with the natural disaster, but some of the response or lack thereof afterward. And we're thinking about you. And if there's any, I don't know what the Brewing Network can do, but if you do know, tell us. Send me an email. Give us a posting. I don't know. One of the first things I thought when I was on my way home thinking about quitting my job was that maybe I should just then, since I won't have a job, head out that way to do some help. And then I realized I'd probably go broke on the way and end up in the same shelters everyone else is in, and I wouldn't be much help. I'd be more of a burden. Yeah. But I just, my heart goes out, and I just, let me mention just a couple of the names of the people. I don't know if any of you know them personally or talk to them in the forum. All I have is their forum names. Smurf, or Smurfy, he's one of them. He's the one out of Baton Rouge. I looked at his, he has a web address on his profile, and it's a EMT web page. So I'm assuming he might, work with EMTs out there. And another one is Ahami 79 from New Roads, Louisiana. I'm not familiar with Louisiana and where that might be, but our best wishes out to those two. There's lots of undescript members who don't say where they're from, and I'm not sure if we have more or not. But I definitely picked out those two, and probably aren't listening, but that doesn't matter. I just wish you all the best, and keep us updated. Let us know you're okay, and let us know what we can do. Mm-hmm. So. There you go. Heart out to Louisiana. And it's sort of in honor. What we're going to do for today's show is every time we take a break today, I'm playing all blues music. And most of it is going to be Louisiana artists, Louisiana blues, New Orleans artists, nice. People who really sort of, made blues what it is today. They created the style. We're thankful to them for doing it. Yeah. So I'm going to play a bunch of that today. Every time we take a break, it's all blues, and most of it will be New Orleans artists. I only had access to so many. I've got 6 or 7 of them. I'll play their tunes, and maybe I'll just throw in some others who are obviously influenced by the New Orleans blues scene, and that's kind of going to be one of the themes of today's show. So if you're wondering why we're playing all that, that's the reason. A tribute as best as we can do. All right? Everybody okay with that?
Yes.
All right. Dr. Scott is not with us again this week, but I think for better reasons than last week. He's supposed to be at Burning Man right now.
I think he's coming back today or tomorrow.
He is? Okay. He said he'd give us a call, although I'm pretty positive he's not going to remember. He's going to be...
He doesn't know what day it is.
Yeah, exactly. He's so wrecked at Burning Man right now, like lighting things on fire and probably consuming illegal substances. Who knows? Yeah. Dr. Scott's a funny man when he cuts loose, and we hope he's having a good time. He deserves it after the week he had before that, and we'll see him in 2 weeks when we come back, right. Unless he calls us today, and then we can get an update. So
that'd be an interesting phone call.
Yeah, I really hope he does, because that's
burning
fun.
The man.
Yeah, we're doing it right now. So that would be fun. Okay, and then the last thing on this little intro I want to get to is I want an update on Daniela's beer. If you tuned in last week, you know that she brewed her first batch last Saturday night, right? Mm-hmm. And I'd like to know how it's going since then. You should have been fermenting for a good week now.
Yeah, I've been fermenting for a week now. I think it's going quite well, actually, but I don't want to jinx myself, of course.
That's a good idea. Mm-hmm. And what have you done to control your fermentation?
Keep it cool, dude.
What's the temperature been?
Between 62 and 65.
Consistently?
Yeah, absolutely. I've done a great job on that.
How often do you check it?
Like 4 times a day.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How are you fermenting it right now? How are you doing it to keep it cold?
It's in a bucket, in a garbage bucket filled with cold water, and I throw ice cubes in it.
So you got your carboy inside the bucket.
Yeah.
And you just add ice cubes every time you need to? All right.
It's good, huh?
It's good?
It's a good idea.
So what are you thinking with it now? What's your next move?
Well, Jamil advised me to have it in there for at least another 6 days, and then I should be fine.
Okay.
So then I'm going to put it in a keg and drink it.
You're going to keg it up?
Yeah.
You're going to have to bottle some of it before we drink it all. Because
we'll see.
You're going to be sending it into the Queen of Beer
We'll
competition.
see how it comes out. I'm not going to send in like beer that is not perfect. So we'll see.
I think it's going to come out well. So far you've
Don't
done everything.
jinx me.
I'm not. I'll knock on wood.
Thank you.
But so far you've done everything right, as long as it remains sanitary.
I know.
Your fermentation temperature sounds like it's been great. We talked about your gravities last week, and they were
all right.
Very good.
Yeah.
So, what are you so worried about?
No, I don't know. I just want it to be really good. I'm very excited about it still.
Okay.
So I can't wait to brew the next beer, actually.
All right.
So
what do you got in mind for your next beer?
Helles.
Oh yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-oh. That's a tough one.
I know, but that's what I like, so I have to get on that eventually.
You want to compete against John's Helles?
Absolutely.
Think you can brew a better one?
No, because to be quite honest, I have to admit John's Helles is really, really delicious.
Yeah.
It's very good beer, and I'm from Bavaria, and I only drink Helles, and I've been drinking Helles since I was 15 years old, or maybe 14.
Okay.
And he has definitely brewed a very, very good Helles.
Yeah. It's true. One first in the country.
You can do better.
Thank you, Jamil. I think so too, to be quite honest.
Yeah, he wants his microphone back now.
Yeah, so that's the update. So I'll let you know in 2 weeks and how it came out.
Okay. Thank you, Danielle.
You're welcome.
All right. Keep an eye in that chat room for us. If you have questions for Jamil for the show, today's official topic, we're going to be discussing Jamil's fermentation process in particular, which is not necessarily an odd fermentation process, but just a great example of how you can, properly ferment your beers.
How to do right from a home brewer level.
Yeah. So we'll be discussing that just a bit later, not too much longer. I got a few things to get to. We might take a break first, and then we're going to get right into that. And so send your questions. I have a couple of pre-questions for you, Jamil, that the forum gave to me. Not too many. I think that people were pretty preoccupied this week, so I didn't get as many as usual. But got a couple for you. So we'll get that fermentation discussion going. Before that, as usual, I got some news for you, and then I got a new little segment I might do each week. I don't know.
I like
yet.
this little top 15.
I got a little list. Lots of people have lists.
Did you
right?
write this list?
No, but I did collaborate with I sort of found the list. I do lots of research on the web and go looking for things, and then I modify them to my own purposes. So I will not claim authorship, but it's a list anyway, and I think. I don't know, every good show has a list, so why not us, right?
Yes. Internet's free info, man.
That's right. So I'll try to give you I don't know, I'm not, we'll see how today's goes. If today's goes well, we'll consider having a list each week.
If it goes bad, it's your fault.
Yeah, it's pretty much always my fault. So, here we go. The first thing is that a newspaper admitted yesterday that doctored photographs of Pope Benedict, which it had published last week's issue of the weekly newspaper, were insulting and offensive to its Catholic readers. And basically what this newspaper had done was, the Pope went to Germany. And Danielle, as I understand, this is the first time the Pope's a Pope has been in Germany in I don't know how long. Years, right?
Well, no, that's not true. That's not very accurate. It's the first time that we have a German Pope in, really centuries.
Okay.
But the Pope usually visits Germany frequently, every 5 or 10 years. But this time it was very special because he went there for a youth day.
And
it was
like
the International Youth Day. And he's a German Pope, which is great, actually. And now what are you telling us here?
They took, basically what this newspaper, in their, and I'm defending the newspaper all through this article, by the way. I'm going to have you all know right now. In their satire page, which is where, you do things that are satirical.
I know what satire means. Thank you, though.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, thank you.
They took a picture of the Pope where he was, giving the sacramental devotion, or I don't know what it's called exactly in Catholicism.
You're such an antichrist.
But not at all. I come from a Catholic family.
That doesn't mean shit. You've developed quite weird.
No, I just don't know what it's called, all right? But he's got the goblet of wine in one hand, and in another picture he's got the body of Christ in the other, which is like this little tasty wafer.
It's not tasty.
That's why beer and a pretzel instead,
That's, you know what I'm talking about. So
you guys are so
Germany,
offensive.
for God's sake.
In the article, that's what they did. They replaced the goblet with a beer and the body of Christ with a pretzel.
Are you serious?
Because he was in Germany, which is and anyway, the following day they had to post an apology on their front page. I'll go on with the story.
Yeah, but it's good because we're talking about the Pope, you know?
Come on. You think the Pope doesn't have a sense of humor? Maybe
he does. He's actually a quite funny guy.
Well, then he probably
Pope likes beer too.
He is Bavarian, so he likes beer too.
And I would imagine that he didn't have any uproar over the thing. He probably saw it and laughed. But certain Catholics are very touchy about their Pope.
Me, for example.
So, in a page one apology, the director and management of the Dairy News described the doctored photographs as an insult to Catholics. The photographs in the August 25th edition of the Dairy News were included in the newspaper's satirical Newshound column. They showed one doctored photograph of Pope Benedict XVI holding a glass of beer in his hand instead of a chalice of wine during the consecration at a mass in Cologne, Germany. In the second photograph, the host in the Pope's hands was replaced by a pretzel. The Newshound column did not appear in yesterday's edition, but a front-page apology admitted that the controversial photographs had caused great offense to readers. They are quoted as saying, "To publish these photographs was a highly regrettable error that should never have happened, and their publication was an insult to Catholics, both clerical and laity." I don't know. I just think there probably was a Catholic
I'm
uproar.
Catholic. They didn't ask me.
Yeah, but American Catholics aren't quite as devout as European Catholics, so we don't care.
That's true.
The directors and management of the Dairy News tender their deepest apologies for the offense caused, is what their apology stated. And I'm just here to say, that's funny. Lighten up, it's funny.
Funny.
No one's making fun of the Pope.
Yeah.
That's a funny picture. Yeah. Pope goes to Germany, he has a beer. Come on, and a pretzel. That's funny. I think it's funny. And if I'm the funny police, I'm saying it's funny. So, there's no need to...
You don't think it's funny.
Yeah, Daniela doesn't think it's funny. Look, Danny, when's the last time you went to church, Catholic girl? Probably just as often as most Catholic girls in our country.
Last time I went to church was when I was back in Europe, actually. A couple of months ago, because I can't go to the church here in America. There's no holy places here.
I think you're lying. You did not go the last time you were in Europe.
How? Oh my gosh, how would I ever be lying about when I go to church?
Because you're just kind of that way. You didn't go to church.
Wait, there are holy places here.
Yeah, what do you mean?
What do you mean no holy places?
Yeah, like Anchor Brewing, Sierra Nevada,
Russian River, this garage.
See? All right, so there you go. I think it's funny. Okay. I love these ones. I try to get these stories in as often as possible where people get in fights and start stabbing each other over beer. This particular person stabbed his father over beer. A Macon man, I forgot to find out where that is charged with aggravated assault, accused of stabbing his father after an argument about beer, according to a police report. Cedric Davis, 28, is accused of using a pocket knife to stab his father in the side Tuesday afternoon. Fred Davis said, so the guy lived, he said that they had argued with his son Cedric Davis because Cedric was drinking his beer, the report stated.
How old is this guy?
28, the son is. I don't know how old the dad is.
That's 20 years of aggression right there.
Hey, I'd have stabbed him too if he was drinking my beer. Cedric Davis was drinking his beer, the report stated. So Fred Davis told police that his son later grabbed him, punched him in the face, and stabbed him, the report stated. I'm sorry, I'm laughing.
They were both drunk off their mind, too,
yeah.
You know?
And Dad was pissed that his son was drinking his beer. His son got mad that he yelled at him for it, so son stabbed him. Thing is, I got a lot of anger toward my parents, too, and I'm just hoping that it never comes to that. I don't want to be stabbing anybody.
That's why you live 3,000 miles away.
That's why I don't own any weapons, because I tend to be an angry person occasionally. Like, most of the time, I'm very hippie-like, and, I'm relaxed, but I just have these moments where I'm just angry. I just want to stab stuff. And,
you need a punching bag.
One of the things that could trigger it is my dad yelling at me about beer, So I'm just saying.
This is homebrew.
But if the police ever question you about any of that, you didn't hear anything, okay?
Don't send your dad your homebrew for a while then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then finally, I want to talk about this homebrew ban in Utah. And after reading this article, homebrewing is illegal in Utah. It's illegal. There are homebrew shops in Utah, some very successful ones, according to this article. You're allowed to sell the paraphernalia to make homebrew, much like you can sell, drug paraphernalia, pipes and whatnot. You just call it something else, and it's not illegal until you put it into that use, which breaks the law. And in Utah, you're allowed to sell all the, ingredients and products, but as soon as you start homebrewing, now you're breaking the law. So Salt Lake City, this particular article is announcing, wants to restate the law just to make it known so people don't forget that it's illegal to homebrew. And there's a couple interesting things in the article. I'll read the beginning to give a summary and then just kind of pick through some of the funny statements I saw from the mayor and whatnot. Because the state of Utah has not legalized homebrewing, one city is drafting a ban to make it clear homebrewing is illegal. We haven't had it, this is a quote from them, we haven't had any problems with homebrewing in our city, but under state law it is illegal and we just wanted to make that clear, said South Lake City Attorney David Carlson. The state legislature last considered legalizing homebrewing, as most of the nation has, 7 years ago, but the effort died in committee. Under state law, nothing precludes the sale of homebrewing and winemaking equipment, said Earl Dorius, regulator director of Utah's Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control. But once the equipment is put to use, there's a technical violation of the law. We don't have a good answer for you if you want to do home production. So, in fact, many stores in Utah sell homebrewing equipment and supplies. One store says, our business is thriving. Jamie Burnham, manager of the Beer Nut, which has been open for more than a decade. More and more people have become interested in the hobby. You can't buy what you can make, and the creative nature of what you can brew at home is what intrigues people. Now, that particular statement reminded me again of how spoiled we tend to be in our area here in Northern California, because they state, in places like Utah, where they live in, and a lot of other places in the country, you can't buy great beer like we like to brew. Whereas here, if you want to brew a style of beer, you can easily go out and buy that style and kind of, see what you want to do and taste a few things, But these people are brewing to live, if you ask me, because, it's either that or crap, right? So, I just thought that was interesting that you can't find it, and that's why a lot of people brew there.
There's still 5 states that it's illegal to homebrew in the United States.
Right.
And, if you care about your home brewing and if you care about the beer you have access to, join the AHA, because they actually have lobbyists that protect the rights of home brewers, protect the rights of craft brewers, and try and get you more access to high quality beer and to home brewing.
Okay.
So everybody listening should join. If they
join
don't,
the AHA.
They're not protecting their own rights.
That's true, and it's a good point that there's power in numbers like that because the more members they have, the more they can afford to lobby, and lobbying is really how things get done in our country,
right.
And in many countries, but in the U.S. in particular, if you don't, when you're talking about laws like that and overturning things in particular,
right.
without lobbyists, you can forget it.
Yeah.
So good point, Jamil. Join the AHA.
Yeah.
What else do they say?
Well, you think like 5 states. They don't want you to homebrew, but all the rest, it's okay.
It's okay.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. I think Missouri's another one of them, but I don't know the other 3. Salt Lake City officials say they merely want to rework their ordinance to mirror state law. It's not something South Salt Lake City intends to police, Carlson, the city attorney, said. There's no plan to hunt for people who are homebrewing. However, Mayor Wes Losser didn't sound as amiable. Now, this is funny. He says, I don't care what people do in their own homes as long as it doesn't spill out into the public, he said. But if there were problems related to homebrewing, such as people going blind or a small riot breaking out, we have to think in extremes to cover all the bases. Now, is this not the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard a mayor say in your life?
Yeah, that's scary that he's the mayor.
Yeah. Jeez. He's like, over homebrewing, if you're going blind or starting riots, then we're going to do something about it. Okay, well, don't hold your breath for that to happen.
I wonder if religion has anything to do with the influence over homebrewing.
I don't know. I'm not gonna say either way.
Blind Riot, another homebrew club or band or both.
Yeah, exactly. The article concludes, and I like that they do. As a matter of fact, going blind isn't a threat to homebrewers. A home distiller who fails to separate methanol from ethanol while making spirits, they have gone blind, and some have even died. Right. But you're talking about an entirely different thing. And home distilling, I think, is illegal in California as well. And
isn't it all over the country?
All 50 states.
It is all 50. Okay, there you go. I just think, that to make a statement about a law that has to do with something like homebrewing that you have no idea about as a mayor, just keep your mouth shut then. Yeah. Don't say anything.
Because you're going to have a radio show making fun of you.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, what's his name? Mayor Wes Losser. You're an idiot. There you go. And you're my idiot of the day.
Yeah.
So that's another thing I should do each week. I should have an idiot of the week.
We should send him a homebrew kit.
Should I post it on the homepage? Should I put the idiot of the week up there?
Yeah. Pick him wisely. Yeah. That's red flag right there.
We should send him a homebrew kit, though. You're right, John. It'd be funny.
That would be funny.
Just with a little sticker that says "Don't go blind."
Yeah. .com.
All right, let me do my new list. If it works out, we'll do some more of them, and then we'll take a short break. I'll play some blues for you. We'll come back. We'll get into fermentation. That sound good?
Let's do it.
All right. This is the top, and you'll understand why I chose this topic. The top 15 reasons to allow drinking at work. Okay? I, for one, I didn't put this on the list, but I'm going to add it right now. My number one reason is that my day yesterday wouldn't have been so bad if I was allowed to drink at work. My customers never would have been neglected. They would have gotten excellent and happy service. I would have smiled the whole time. And I
already feel blessed.
Everyone would have been happier. See, John gets to drink at work.
Yeah.
If you call this work
customer,
what we're doing
go
now,
to the ale house and have a pint and call it even. We're good.
Yeah. But you actually, I've gone to the homebrew shop to B3. Mm-hmm. I gone there. I know you've done this too, Jamil. You're there at like 2 p.m, right? And they got employees coming out going, "Hey, John, can I get one of your beers from the back?"
It's about 5 in the evening.
I don't know about that.
We run a strict alcohol control.
Okay, John. I'll let you have that. But everyone,
2 o'clock sounds about right.
Yeah. And I'm just going, man. And you people call this work.
Yeah.
But here you go. The top 15 reasons to allow drinking at work. I'll go from 1 to 15 because everyone else goes like backwards. They go from 15 to number 1. I'm going to do 1 to 15.
I like that.
Why not?
Because you're different.
I don't think that they're in like order of value.
No.
So there you go. So number 1, it's an incentive to show up.
No shit.
Which I agree.
Especially if you're underpaid.
Number 2, it reduces stress. My point about yesterday. Number 3, it leads to more honest communications, which as many of you who work with several people or even just work with idiots, communication can be difficult.
It can.
So, honest communication may or may not help.
Well, everybody's got a front, and alcohol, takes away that front and you're relaxed.
Right. Number 4, it reduces complaints about low pay. So for you managers out there, more people are...
If you could have a pint a day when you go to work, you're set.
You're not complaining about
minimum wage.
Minimum wage, yeah. Number 5, it cuts down on time off because you can go to work with a hangover. Which is also true because you get a little hair of the dog when you get there.
There you go.
Number 6, employees tell management what they think, not what management wants to hear. Which, again, if you're a realistic management personnel, not one of these like management by the book guys, you really should know what people actually think, not what you want to hear. And so that would help. Number 7, it helps saves on heating costs in the winter.
Yeah.
Number 8, it encourages carpooling, hopefully. Number 9, increases job satisfaction, because if you have a bad job, you don't care. Which, now this I agree with. Again, I would last a lot longer at my current job just because of that. I wouldn't care. I'd get free beer. Which, by the way, is the only good thing that's happened out of my job. I got 2 cases of free beer for the weekend. That's nice.
Okay, I saw those.
The
nice.
beer out there. Number 10, it eliminates vacations because people would rather come to work. It makes fellow employees look better, which is certainly true at Beer, and More Beer, John.
Yeah, thanks.
Just to let you know.
I appreciate it.
Definitely needed.
Yeah.
Number 12, it makes the cafeteria food taste better. Number 13, bosses are more likely to hand out raises when they're wasted. Very true. You've all been to those Christmas parties.
I worked Dr. Scott over when he was drunk.
I
got a free dental retainer for Anna.
Those company Christmas parties where boss is like, you're my favorite employee.
Yeah, you get Olin drunk. He's like, hey, can I have this bottle of wine? It's like 10 years old. Sure.
Nice. Number 14, salary negotiations are a lot more profitable. And finally, number 15, if someone does something stupid on the job, it'll be quickly forgotten. Which I definitely appreciate. I do a lot of stupid things.
Yes.
So there you go, the first official list. What do you think? Should we bring it back next week?
I like it.
You like it?
Yeah,
Jamil, how'd you like
sweet.
it? He'll listen to the archive, and he said it's so-so.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to play some blues for you in the name of what's going on in Louisiana and elsewhere. And we'll come back, and we'll start the fermentation discussion. Sound good, everybody? All right. The Brewing Network, this is... Lightnin' Slim, right out of Louisiana. Lightnin' Slim.
Slim.
Yeah,
Right.
here we go.
Look like bad luck and trouble. It's trying
You're listening to 3 guys with 1 microphone and 5 gallons of beer.
The Brewcasters
on the Brewing Network.
That has some hip-hop flow.
Which one? That little ID we did there? That's good stuff. Yes, nice. So there's a little Louisiana blues for you. Who are all the artists? You guys want to know the artists?
Yeah, please.
Just let's announce them. So the first one, who did I say we had? Lightning Slim, of course. After that, we had Guitar Slim. Did I only play 2? I think I just did 2.
You're Justin Slim.
Yeah, Lightning Slim and Guitar Slim. I think after that, we're going to be playing a little Professor Longhair, some Slim Harpo, some Buddy Guy. I got some Little Walter. I got some Louis Armstrong. You got to do Louis Armstrong, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe I'm going to do some Irma Thomas, who is a bit of a different style, but she's straight up Louisiana blues. So maybe we do some Irma Thomas later. So there you go. A little tribute
What's
to...
up with the word slim?
That's kind of odd. I've been to New Orleans, and Slim doesn't seem, the right descriptor there.
Not a lot of Slims?
Jamil Slim. Slim Jamil.
I think it's that thing like, a tiny when something's really big.
Someone's big. Exactly. You got the Slim. You know what I like about the blues names is compared to, say, the modern names that, we get in hip hop and rap and even in country and different things. Those names suck.
Yeah,
they're not clever, they're not fun, they're not funny. Right?
No,
they're funny,
J-Lo,
Dougie Fresh, P. Diddy,
Piffity, Poofy,
right?
Ice something or other, yeah.
This does sound like a bunch of white kids. What I mean is, if they're just not cool, they're not funny, like Guitar Slim. That's funny. He's a big fat guy with a guitar, right? Guitar Slim is great, Big Daddy Bones. That's a woman with a mustache. That's funny. It's a good name.
Big Daddy Bones.
So, there you go. That's my little take on blues names.
That was awesome.
And I like them. Okay. So I know I said we were going to get right to the fermentation talk, but I got something good to do just before. And it's not me blabbering on, so that's why it's good. We got some listener beer to taste.
Good.
We love it when listeners send in their homebrew. And Lufa, I don't know if you're out there. You got him in the chat room there? Does he know we're going to taste his beer? He's okay with it, right? Because he sent it to the Brewing Network, but one bottle in particular, and this bottle is Daniela's, so it's her choice of what she wants to do with it. Listen to what this guy did. Lufa's been cool to us to the beginning, like lots of our listeners as well, but I've talked about him before. I like him because he got the funny picture next to him in the forum, and he just looks like a cool guy. And he's always been cool and saying nice things to us, and he sent us his beer, which was awesome. And he sent it in thanks for all the archives that we put up. So, hey, you're welcome. Thank you for sending us your beer. So I'm gonna read, I don't know if I can read the whole letter, but here's what's important. I'm not sure how good it will taste with this much age on it, but I'm sending the last bottle of my first batch of homebrew to Daniela for some inspiration to get her first homebrew done.
Wow, that's heavy.
He sent his last bottle of his first homebrew.
How long has he been brewing?
I'm not sure. You, right in the chat room there, Lufa, how long have you been brewing?
Yeah, Lufa, how long have you been brewing? And I just want to say thank you and that I really, really appreciate that. You know me, it made me cry again. So that was really very cute and very nice.
She did. She got all choked up. It says, the other bottle is the last bottle of my first batch. I'm not sure how good it will taste, but I'm sending it along for Daniela. So there you go.
A year.
He oaked 18 months.
A year, yeah.
A year, 18 months.
I think he oaked this beer.
Yeah.
This one. No, that's not the one you're tasting. Oh. The one you're tasting isn't his first batch. That one's Daniela's.
So we don't taste that one.
That one's in the fridge, and she can do with it as she wishes. You know what's cool about it? He's got it, that wax cover you can do like on a bottle of Maker's Mark, or that they used to do on letters? He's got that over the bottle cap. It's all waxed, which I just think is a nice touch.
Yeah, and it's nice.
Probably no purpose to it, but it looks real cool.
Yeah.
So he's got the wax.
Keeps it clean.
And anyway, what we're drinking here is his vanilla bourbon porter. It's his VBP. So, and then he also sent it, right? Does it say VBP on the bottle cap, John?
It does, yeah.
Because he sent us another one, POB, which is his pissed off braggot. And I think that one's in the fridge, so maybe we'll get to that one later on. But he says, thanks for all the great work. If there's anything you can do to help, let him know.
I like this beer a lot.
And Lufa, this is helping.
Mm-hmm.
So you've tasted it, you're drinking it.
Mm-hmm.
This is the vanilla porter.
It's got like a smoked, smoked oak edge to it.
It's got a good bourbon character and a good vanilla character, and that's well balanced.
You can smell it right away.
And there's some higher alcohols in there. Might be fermentation related, might be just the bourbon. But do
you think it was in a bourbon barrel?
Maybe, or they might have just added some bourbon.
I was going to ask that. So you can just add bourbon, right?
Oh, sure. There's a lot of people add bourbon. There's even oak extract you can add.
Huh.
And it's oak.
Yeah.
I mean, they make it from soaking oak cubes and alcohol.
You know what I like is that he did the vanilla, because I've had a bourbon batch, right? And to me it's just too bourbony. Mm-hmm. But the vanilla smooths out that. And even with I do know the high alcohol you're talking about. Again, at least the vanilla smooths that out. Mm-hmm. So you don't get it's still a lot like a beer rather than like a barley wine or a really high gravity,
You'll get a lot of vanilla out of oak itself. If you have an oak barrel and you put your beer in there, you'll get a lot of vanilla out of it. Oak itself contributes a significant vanilla character.
Lufa, how'd you get the oak and the vanilla? If you can put that in the chat room there for us, I'd like to know.
The only detractor I'd say on this is that the body's kind of thin and it's highly carbonated, and I'm wondering, maybe it's continued to ferment in the bottle or something, or there might be some other wild yeast or something in there that's continuing to ferment in the bottle, depending on how well it was done.
Could the higher alcohols cover that up from the bourbon?
Yeah, and if it had gone in a barrel, the barrel will harbor some bugs if you're not really, really careful. So so that's the only thing. I think it's a little overcarbonated, and a little thin for what would be ideal, but
I agree with
in general,
the body.
Quite good,
How would you correct the body part? Because it is a little thin. What kind of things could you do to make it?
Well, it depends on how it was made in the first place. I'm guessing he's got some good character malts in there, and that in and of itself should have provided enough body in a beer like this. You just can't ferment out that caramel and crystal and all that stuff.
Okay.
But, so I'm thinking, that stuff will get fermented by wild yeast or bacteria, and, it's got a cloudiness to it, and, the high carbonation, which makes me think of, wild yeast.
Okay.
But, that may not be the case.
He says here that he added vanilla beans and then added bourbon at bottling. Mm-hmm. And I'm wondering if the actual adding bourbon at bottling would have thinned out the body right there.
Depends on how much. In a 5-gallon keg, you don't need to add a lot of bourbon.
Okay.
But, it's got some, you can really get that bourbon alcohol.
Mm.
So especially when it warms up.
Quite a bit. But then you got higher carbonation too. So, the carbonation, if it was carbonated in the bottle and it should have been normal and it comes out higher.
Yeah.
Then you got something in there that's eating the non-fermentable sugars and starches. And then you end up with a thinner body, and you end up with high carbonation.
Okay, I love the flavor.
Yeah, very good.
I really
very
like
good.
the flavor.
Yeah.
Just if you could, Lufa, send in the chat room there. I'd like to know the percent, the ABV on it. Mm-hmm. Just curious.
And again, kudos for sending it in, having the stones to send your beer out to be talked about in front of everybody, and I'm being as critical as I can about this. Like I would in a competition.
Yeah.
That's the only real negatives I can pick up.
In case you don't know, if you're a first-time listener, or just if you're not familiar with Jamil, he is a certified
national
BJCP judge. So he does do this when he tastes them in competitions. And
well, once you swirl out a little bit of the gas out of this and let it warm up a little bit, quite nice.
Did you do that? And it's getting a little better. You got Lufa on the phone? Oh, cool. All right, let's pick him up. Hang on a sec.
He's going to yell at me.
Shut up, jerk. Go ahead. Lufa, are you there?
Yeah.
Hey, Travis, right?
Yeah.
How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for sending us your beer.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, hey, no problem.
I think that was very cool of you. And thanks for putting that funny picture of yourself in the forum. I just think it's cool. I got to put one of those of myself up, just because I think you got to have a little smile with a beer.
With a beer,
yeah. That's great. All right, so tell us about your beer, if you would.
Okay, hang on. I'm lagging. Let me shut the sound off on my computer.
Oh, yeah, that's what you got to do.
The vanilla bourbon porter, it was a first-time experiment. That's like a recipe I picked up off the net, and then I upped the vanilla and upped the bourbon a little bit because my wife wanted a beer that was real vanilla-y.
Okay.
So
okay.
it was just something I was playing with, and that's the first time I brewed that recipe. So
does the recipe have a lot of sugar in it, or simple sugar, like cane sugar or honey or anything like that?
No, not really. Just pretty standard high gravity bourbon, or not bourbon, but porter.
Okay.
And then on the high end of the or the porters, and then just the vanilla added into secondary, and then the bourbon at bottling. I think I put too much sugar in when I bottled.
Okay.
Being overcarbonated.
Yeah, it needs a little more body and less carbonation, and you got yourself a nice winner there.
Is this extract?
No, it was all grain.
It was all grain. Gotcha.
What was your grain bill?
I'm looking right now. 12 pounds of two-row, 2.5 pounds Munich, a pound and a half brown malt, a pound of, Crystal 120, half pound of Crystal 40, and a half pound chocolate.
Okay.
There's a lot of Crystal in that.
Yeah.
That should leave a lot of sweetness and body. We're not getting that, so. How old is the beer?
3 months.
Not old. Not old at all, is it?
Mm-mm.
What's your mash temp?
154.
154.
Really?
I like Travis, by the way, answers these questions just like I would. Like, oh, come on.
I'm about half drunk, and I'm trying to look through stuff on the computer. So.
That's cool. That's cool. I have all my stuff there, too. I'd be doing the same thing, man. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
154. Is that what do you think about that, Jamil? That's a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, the recipe sounds good. The mash temp sounds good. All that sounds good. So that it's thinning out and gaining carbonation, I don't wonder if there isn't something in there, and it's cloudy, and I'm just wondering if there's a wild yeast going.
Is this counter pressure filled or corn sugar?
It really doesn't taste that way. It's just body, carbonation, and cloudiness that makes me think that. And based on the recipe, you should have a much bigger mouthfeel from this. It should be sweeter and quite thick at 154. And what's the starting gravity?
1082.
Yeah. You should have a bigger finish. You used California ale yeast?
I'm sorry?
Yeast? What yeast did you use? California
I think 1056.
Yeah, California
1056.
ale.
Yeah, okay.
It seems real clean from that, and but that won't ferment more than 70 some odd %. So you should have a really chewy beer at this point, especially with a 154 mash temp. So there's something going on there. But at this point, it's still quite nice, especially once a little bit of the carbonation leaves. Nice beer.
We got more of it too. I'm going to drink some more later in the show. Yeah,
those are like 6 bottles in there.
Travis, are you one of those? I don't remember. I remember seeing you in the forum posting about this stuff. Are you one of the glass guys or the plastic guys in your fermenter?
I do both. Actually.
You do both. Okay.
Depending on what I have open and available.
Okay, gotcha. That's actually a great answer.
More beer,
whatever's there.
Yeah. I tend to do the buckets more with the beers and save the glass for like meads. I've been starting a lot of meads and ciders and stuff and using my glass more for the longer term stuff.
Okay, gotcha. You want to give him something for that? That's a good idea, Jamil. Hey, we've got a couple of things to give away that Jamil brought in. Isn't that not? Okay. What a cool guy. Jamil didn't even necessarily work in the beer industry. He still brought cool stuff to give away.
Yeah.
I got some White Labs gift certificate to send you. You can get some free yeast. Is that cool? I think, let's see, what is it? This coupon entitles you to a free vial of White Labs pitchable yeast. So, there you go. That saves you, $5-6, right?
Just mail into your homebrew shop.
Outstanding.
All right, cool. So we'll send that to you, Travis, just for sending us your beer. We appreciate that.
You deserve it. Good brewing, good beer.
Good experimentation. I like that it's just a different kind of a beer. And like I was saying before you called, Travis, I really like the vanilla and not just doing a bourbon beer because it smooths it out.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. Well, when you try that braggot, let me know what you think of it, because it's got kind of a medicine-y taste to it. And I have no idea because I've never drank a braggot.
Okay. I don't even know what a braggot is.
Half meat, half beer.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what it is? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, if you're going to hang out, then maybe call back. We're going to try it a little bit later in the show.
All right.
So if you're still there, call us back and we'll talk about that one because Jamil might be able to pick out, John as well, might be able to pick out what's wrong with that if you get a Medici thing in there.
Cool.
So, all right. Thanks for the call and thanks for the beer. We'll talk to you a bit later.
Thanks.
Okay, see ya. All right.
That's
Travis,
cool.
There you go.
Send in some beer.
Yeah, that's
I think
awesome.
it's a good beer.
Okay.
I like it.
So that there is for Travis, and we'll get him some yeast, and we got a couple other things to give away, which we're going to do later.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get all crazy with your Stump the Brewer questions yet. I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to throw a twist at you later. It's not going to be a normal Stump the Brewer. I'm not going to give it away just yet, but you don't necessarily need to prepare your great questions for Jamil because we're gonna throw in a twist.
Yes.
So there you go. Okay. I had one thing planned, but let's hold off on that and let's just get into this fermentation discussion. It's getting a little later in the show, and we need to use up Jamil while he's here because he's got some good stuff.
He's full of info.
So what John and I were talking about, and Jamil had talked to John about it before that, is that fermentation being possibly the most important part of brewing a beer at home. Most people say the most important part, who are brewing great beers. Jamil, just by the quality of his beers that I've had, and that John has had, and then with his record of winning competition, obviously has a great fermentation process. So what we thought we'd do is get him in here to talk specifically about what he does when he's, from beginning to end about fermenting a beer and that entire process and maybe some little tricks of the trade in there and use that as an example of how to properly ferment your beer. And I, for one, suck at this part of the process. I'll tell you this, and I've said that before. The batch that I'm brewing right now, and maybe we can use mine as another example of what to and not to do, as we're talking about yours, is the first time that I think I've gotten close to properly fermenting a beer, where I've really controlled the temperature, I've done I did a yeast starter, I've used some yeast nutrients, I've really done a few things in there to try to get it right this time. And I've brewed probably 10 batches. This is the first time I've paid that much attention to fermentation. So I'm particularly happy to have this discussion, and, why don't we, I'm not sure where exactly you want to start, Jamil, but let's just get rolling with that. Your process of fermenting.
Sounds good. Do you do a yeast starter at all? If you're going to replicate your yeast down the line,
right?
Do you do a starter, and if so, how big?
You and I talked about this, quite a bit, and a lot of people do starters. And one of the things Chris White goes on and on about is the yeast they send out from White Labs in those vials is prepped and ready to really, go. It's yeast at the optimal health. It's as perfect as you're going to get yeast ready to brew. And they do that so you can just toss it into the carboy. And what a lot of people are doing is they say, well, the cell count isn't quite high enough to brew a batch of beer properly. I'm going to make a starter. Everybody tells me make a starter. And they'll throw that into, a pint or a liter of wort. And they'll let that ferment out completely, and they'll let that sit for a couple of days, and then they take that yeast and they toss it in their beer.
Now, do you want to do that, or is that
what you're doing? There is you're stressing your yeast. The amount of cells in a White Labs tube is not going to get the proper cycle and nutrients that it needs out of a liter of wort.
Okay.
If you ferment that out, all you're doing is depleting the glycogen reserves of the yeast. It's not really going to be set up to brew right after that. Now,
you're actually weakening your yeast.
You're weakening your yeast from what White Lab sends you, or Y yeast for that matter as well.
If you deplete the glycogen reserves of the yeast, what does that do to your yeast when you pitch it?
It hurts in replication. It uses those glycogen reserves in order to divide and create more yeast cells.
Okay.
So, one of the things is pitching rate. So you have to go back to you want to pitch enough yeast to properly ferment your wort. You want to pitch enough viable yeast. Okay. All the yeast that you see in a package isn't 100% viable. It's very close in a White Labs or a Y yeast package, but not 100%. What you want to pitch is 1 million cells per milliliter of wort per degree Plato. Okay. So what does that mean to me?
Yeah, because I'm not going to do that calculation every time I pitch. So, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah. So in 5 gallons of wort at 12 degrees Plato, which is 1048.
Okay.
You want about 240 billion yeast cells in there.
Wow.
Okay.
Already active yeast cells.
Right.
Okay.
Healthy, ready to go yeast cells. That's 240 billion. Okay, a tube of White Labs has between 30 and 50 billion cells.
Okay.
So, if the average tube has 40 billion cells, you need 6 of those tubes to properly ferment a 5-gallon batch of 1048 wort.
Wow.
Okay, so it's about 20 billion cells per degree Plato in a 5-gallon batch. So if you got a 5-gallon batch and it's 1048, you need 240 billion. If it's 1052, you need 260 billion. Okay, so an easy number to remember, 20 billion per degree Plato, which is about 4 points of, so 5 billion per degree of original gravity.
Okay.
Okay, and if you're doing Y yeast activator packs, even their biggest one is about 100 billion cells. You need 2.5 of those to properly ferment a 5-gallon batch of beer.
If you didn't do a starter.
Right. Now, if you do a starter, you need to make sure you're doing a big enough starter. If you just put a White Labs tube or a Y yeast pack into a little bit of wort, and you're going to ferment it all the way out, you need to make it big enough. So for White Labs, going into you want to go into like a 2-liter wort, and if you ferment that out, you should end up with about 240 billion cells. Is the idea.
Okay.
And that would be enough to pitch into your 5-gallon batch. Okay. If you're doing lagers, 1.5 to 2 times these numbers.
Okay.
Okay. So the lagers really require that. The trick that John and I were talking about that I came up with a while ago was the better thing to do if you're not going to do this is to I'll start out at the beginning of the day, and first thing in the morning before I brew, I'll pitch my tube of White Labs into a couple of liters of wort, or two tubes, depends on what you got.
Does the original gravity of your starter play a role?
Yes. So you pitch that into the starter, let it get active, and so you go off on your brew day, and by the time you're ready to pitch, you've got a real active culture of yeast cells. And it's starting to ferment, and that's what you pitch in.
All right. Now let me dumb this down for a second, especially because of your gravity of the thing of your starter you're talking about here, John. I'm semi-lackluster about doing my starter because my understanding of the process was to get the yeast multiplying and active and working and doing their job, and then to pitch that, right?
Pitch it while it's doing that, exactly. Okay. Yeah.
So what I mean by semi-lackluster is that what I'm doing to make the wort that I'm going to start my yeast in, right, is I'm using DME, right, and I'm using about I think I'm using about a 1/4 ounce of DME.
Quarter pound. 1,000 mils, roughly.
Okay, right. You're right. 1/4 pound, and I'm throwing that into my little pot on the stove, and I'm boiling it for 15 minutes to get it to get it all going. And then I'm pouring it into my Erlenmeyer flask until I get up to 900 milliliters. I put it down to 900 instead of the 1,000 because I've had it overflow before. And sometimes I'm left with a little wort left in my little pot because I didn't measure the water exactly, and because I don't know how much is going to boil off in the 15 minutes. Does that matter? You see what I mean? Because I'm leaving a little bit of the DME behind, and I'm just getting it to 900 milliliters, or is that good enough?
It's probably good enough.
Okay.
Ideally, if you're doing yeast propagation, you need to be in the 1020 to 1040 range of starters. Some people say 1035, 1020 to 1035, and going to a higher sugar concentration can be stressful. So if you're going into propagation, you can propagation. You give it one of the shows you mentioned having a watery tasting, low alcohol. If you give oxygen to yeast continuously throughout a ferment, they don't produce alcohol; they produce water.
Right.
Essentially, and you end up but what you're doing sounds about right. If you can do that, you're way ahead of the game. If you just take a tube and toss it in, that'll work. you're much better off making a starter every time.
Okay.
And starters are just as easy as you're saying. You can take an Erlenmeyer flask, you can put it on the stove because those things are borosilicate glass.
I was going to ask you that. Good.
Just put it right on the stove.
Okay.
Put your water in there, put it right on the stove, put your DME, just shake it up. You don't have to boil it in a separate container or anything or a pot. Just put the flask right on the stove, put a piece of foil loosely on the top, boil it up. You can do it the night before and just let it sit overnight. If you don't move the foil, it'll be sanitary the next morning as well.
Okay.
Toss your yeast in the morning, go off to do your brewing. At the end of your brewing session, which is 5 hours or it depends on what you're doing, it's ready to go. Pour that in.
Right.
That's a vast site better than what a lot of people are doing right there. That can get you into the metal round right there.
Okay. Good, because I didn't want, like I said, I don't want to worry about whether my wort's exactly at 1020. I'm not going to measure it. I'm going to do it just like I said. I'm going to put the DME in there. I'm going to boil it. I'm going to put the yeast in it when it cools down.
You want it to be fun. You don't want to, suffer all day long.
Yeah.
And
I'm not a scientist.
I've got a microscope and a sterile, glove bag, and I've got an environment for doing yeast culturing and all this stuff, but. That's not a lot of fun unless you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah, which people are.
But, you can just pour water and DME into an Erlenmeyer, put a piece of foil on it, and set it on your stove for 15 minutes, and then, pour the tube in and, go brew.
Right.
That's not a lot of extra work in order to get, 100-fold better beer.
Now, do I need to shock that thing down to temperature, or can I just leave it sitting until it gets down to 75 degrees or so, and then pitch?
Yeah,
that's fine. I don't need to. I don't need to put it in ice or anything else.
No. Okay. You're not worried about the break at that point. It's such a small volume compared to the overall.
Okay.
So, do you boil your starter the night before, pitch your yeast the morning of?
Oh, no, you're talking about what's easy and what I do. I brew 5 gallons of starter wort. From all grain and proper nutrients and a little bit of hopping, about 7 IBUs of hopping, and then I chill it down to get the cold break out, and then I put it into the ball canning jars, and I put it in a canner, and I pressure cook it at 250 degrees for about 30 minutes, so it's sterile.
Wow.
And I make up a couple of cases of sterile starter wort, and the great thing about it is it sits there. I mean, I can make it once a year.
Yeah.
And I just unscrew the lid, flame the opening, and I pour it into the container. It's ready to go.
I gotcha.
Wow.
So it's just, it's a little easier for me because it's ready to go anytime I want. And sometimes I'll brew at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
I got some time between meetings and I'll just decide to brew.
Go for it, yeah.
So, it's just a little faster, but, I think what you're doing, you're getting pretty much the same result.
Okay. Now I'll tell you this about this last starter that I did, with the batch that I'm doing right now. I had that starter going within 5 hours. I actually did the starter just before I started my brew.
There you go.
Did the starter just before, got it going, set it aside. I did cool it down quickly, put it in ice to cool it down because I wanted to get the yeast in there faster because of my time constraint. I knew I was going to be brewing right away. Did it, cooled it down, pitched my yeast, and then started my brew process, right? And by the time I was done and ready to pitch, that starter was going already. It was already bubbling. Maybe it wasn't at its peak,
but it's, it's right where you want it to be. And,
okay.
And you get that in there and, it says, lots of sugars and, it keeps replicating and that's where you want to be.
So there you go. So you don't necessarily have to set aside the night before or even the morning of. Just do it, just before you start your brew process, do your starter instead and then go for it. If you're short on time, you could do that. And then and you can tell if it's working. There's no, even I could tell. There's no signs about it. If it's bubbling and moving.
Right. And it gets real cloudy and, that's the yeast replicating.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Good.
On, Jay. Should be good beer.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's go on then from your yeast starter. Now you're done with your wort.
What about sanitary? How do you keep everything clean? Well, you have a great starter. Right. Now you're introducing it to your wort.
Right.
How do you keep things clean and how do you pour it in?
And that's one of the things I worry about a lot is sanitation. That's, just critical. And it's one of the reasons I brew more in the winter than I do in the summer. There's less wild yeast floating around. I brew outside.
Okay.
You pitch outside too?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
One of the things about sanitation is you just can't do too much for sanitation. every step of the way, you're adding more bugs into your beer. It's just a fact of life. Nobody brews a sterile beer. Nobody in the world. A couple of things I do is I have a ultra low particle air filter that I use for, like yeast propagation and stuff. But I've done just fine working in, a kitchen, which is really not that great because there's a lot of yeasts and stuff floating around the kitchen and bacteria.
Especially in mine, by the way.
Yeah, it's worse than the bathrooms in most homes.
My kitchen?
No.
Yeah.
Well, that's worse than most public restrooms. But in most homes, the kitchen is worse than the bathroom as far as bacteria goes.
Yeah.
But you can spray down the counter with alcohol, wipe it off with a towel, shut off any air conditioner, things that are moving the air. Mm-hmm. As long as the air's still, there's dust constantly falling out of the air everywhere you're at. Work quickly, get your wort in there, get your yeast in there, close it up. Okay. And you can do a pretty darn good job. And if you're doing starters and you're making lots of healthy yeast and you're using proper nutrients and you're fermenting right, what'll happen is you're going to out-compete those bugs. The bugs are still in there, and they will finish off all the leftover starches and sugars and stuff over time. But you can out-compete them in the main part, and that's what's important.
That's your main flavor.
Healthy yeast, you suppressed potential off flavor.
Right, you get enough alcohol in there, the pH drops low enough, then like lactobacillus won't go below a certain pH, and and alcohol and hops will stun a lot of those things.
Listener wants to know what you use to sanitize. What's your sanitizer of choice?
I use both. I use heat for sterilization because I actually sterilize things in a little autoclave.
Okay.
And then, but that's not necessary. But if you're doing starters, boil them on the stove with a piece of foil on the top. That's sanitary.
Okay.
That's a heat sanitization. If I'm doing kegs, I sanitize my kegs with Star San.
Okay.
Which I find to be very good. Beer lines I do with the Santa Clean, which is the non-foaming Star San.
Okay.
Or from the same company. And then for carboys and things like that, I use iodophor.
Okay. Which is the iodine one. Okay.
So I do not use bleach of any kind anywhere.
Okay. Now, why don't you just use the Star San on a carboy?
Yeah.
It foams a lot, and getting it out of carboy, it's a lot of bubbles and stuff.
Yeah,
and
right.
When I fill my kegs, I see a sheen across the top from the Star San.
Yeah.
And if you can see a sheen, any sheen is going to kill head.
Okay.
So
what do you mean
it's
sheen?
It's like a rainbow effect on top of the liquid,
like gasoline on the ground when it rains.
Exactly.
It's the same thing on a body, and you're absolutely right. And and I've had discussions about Star San with John before, and John's talked to the Star San guys too about the safety of it. But
I love Star San, but
you're right, and I've wondered about that too because I can see it on my. I've put beer in my carboy full of suds. I mean, I've dumped out the Star San, although I put beer in there when it's full of Star San too. But you know what I mean. So I dump out the Star San, and I've got a good quarter of the bottom is suds, and I'll put my beer in, and the suds will generally go away.
Yep.
But you're right, I got that film on top that looks like the Exxon Valdez spill.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that worries me a little bit, but Star San is a very good product, and it's nice that it kills a lot of things. And I do use it in all my kegs, and that's how I use it. In the carboys, I'm using iodophor 1 because it's cheap and it's easy. And the biggest problem people have with sanitizers, all the sanitizers on the market are very good.
Okay.
And they all work quite well. The problem people have with sanitizers is people dump in based on color, they dump in based on clarity, they dump in based on, who knows what. Measure your sanitizer. Measure how much you're mixing. You should have volume measurements on all your containers.
Yeah.
You should have, and know, okay, for 5 gallons of liquid, I need, how much sanitizer. And using the appropriate amount, you don't want to use too much iodophor or too much Star San. You don't want to use too little. Too much is as bad as too little.
Okay.
You know, you're going to taste it if you go to the extreme.
Right.
And this, you know, and in some cases it'll actually like alcohol. Alcohol 100% does not sanitize anything.
Okay.
Alcohol at 70% is a great sanitizer.
Really? Interesting.
Does that sterilize or
it needs the water to denature the proteins.
Okay.
So, but it will. You're not sterilizing unless you get things over a certain temperature.
Okay.
I don't think sterilization can be had with any chemical means. I'm not 100% sure, but it can be had with heat.
Okay. With that, I have a question. How about a pressure cooker?
Yeah, pressure cooker. Yeah. Absolutely.
That's what you, is that what you're referring to when you say, okay, you're using a pressure cooker?
Pressure cooker is an autoclave.
Okay, same thing. So you can use that to sterilize.
Yes.
A couple questions about starters, and I think the first question that's ever come through for me. I think it's actually the first question in 3 months of shows that anyone ever cared what the hell I had to say about it. I'm going to cry now.
Okay. Where's the violin?
That's awesome.
That is awesome. I'm going to fill my beer.
But I'll ask Jamil's question first. He's filling his. I'll ask mine first then, I guess. They want to know what size Erlenmeyer flask I use and how much water do I add to the quarter pound of DME. Now I'm glad you asked that question because that's why I asked Jamil whether or not what I was doing is appropriate. I used 1,000 milliliter flask. Correct me on that, John, right? I'm using 1,000 milliliter. Okay. I use 1,000 milliliter flask. And what I kind of do is I'll pour that because, well, now that I know I can just boil the flask itself right on the stove, what I think I'm going to do next time is fill it up just above 1,000 milliliters, boil it because that's going to go down to about 900, I'm assuming, and end up with a 900 milliliter pitch, which is what I like to have. What I've done in the past is I'll fill up my Erlenmeyer flask to over 1,000, then I pour it into a pot, and I boil it there with my DME, and I pour it back and just hope that I get 900 milliliters out of it is what I've done. And a couple of times I've had a little bit more, a couple of times I've had a little bit less, and that's why I was asking Jamil about it. It sounds like that's okay, as long as I'm close to my 900 milliliters and I'm getting an active yeast started, that'll be fine. You don't need to use the larger Erlenmeyer flasks unless you need a larger pitch, which would be for a bigger boil, like a 10-gallon batch.
Right. What about gravity?
Ideally, you should be doing a 2-liter starter.
2 liters, even in a 5-gallon.
For 5 gallons, a 12 Play-Doh wort.
That's what, half gallon?
That's a Coke bottle.
With a 1 tube of White Labs, you want for a 1048 wort, you want 2-liter starter.
Well, what about, I do 2 tubes of White Labs in my 900 milliliter starter. Not enough wort?
Not enough wort, but,
So 2 900 milliliter starters?
Ideally. The reality is everybody's under pitching. People talk about over pitching, but they're dreaming if they think they're over pitching.
Okay.
But, what you're doing is far better than 95% of homebrewers.
Okay.
You're going to make beer better than 95% of homebrewers right there.
Just by starting with that.
Yes.
Well, because I've gone to John's and I've seen his 2 900 milliliter Erlenmeyer sitting out there, but I just assumed, well, heck, he's doing 10 gallons, so that's why he's doing 2 of them.
Right.
But you're saying I could do 2 of them as well, and I'd probably be more accurate of a pitch?
Yeah, the thing that people worry about in starters and pitching the whole starter in there is they worry about, thinning out the wort or affecting the flavor of their beer. With a liter, you put a liter into 25 liters or 20 some odd liters of beer, you're not going to taste it if it's somewhat in the range. But if when you start getting up to like 4 liters, a gallon for a lager, and it's, you're doing like a Doppelbock or a dark lager, and you got some light DME thing, and I can understand how people worry. So you might ferment that out completely, chill it, decant the liquid, and pitch just the yeast. But you need to do, so you need to, if you're gonna ferment it all the way out, you need to provide the yeast an environment that will allow it to go full cycle, build its glycogen reserves, has all the proper nutrients, and then you can go ahead and chill it down, do a full fermentation. Let it go long enough. Don't let it overnight and then I'm going to chill it down because you're screwing up your yeast. Let it go all the way. If you're doing something like that, a bigger wort, a gallon of wort. Let it go for a week, chill it down, get the yeast off of it, then build to your, you want a 10-to-1 replication, size-wise, on your starters to start with. And then when you get to what you're going to pitch to make beer, you want a 5-to-1 size difference. So for, a 5 gallon, ideally you want a gallon.
Wow.
Yeah.
What
about gravity of the beer
that's
that
why
you're brewing?
Repitching is so important. Gravity makes a big difference. It's one of the reasons I got into low gravity beers like Scottish 60 shillings and milds and ordinary bitters.
Yeah.
Is that's a perfect starter opportunity, right? So you can make a 2-liter starter and pitch it into a 10-30 wort of 5 gallons of mild, and it'll properly ferment that, and you'll end up with a really nice mild. The yeast off of that is ideal for pitching 2 separate 10-50 worts.
Right.
And the yeast off of that is good for 4 other worts. You can repitch and you can get great yeast off of that.
How do you repitch your yeast?
Repitching, for me, I try and simplify everything I can, and I try and put all my effort into the things that really matter. So when it comes time to repitch, first off, I don't do secondaries. Secondaries, I think, is
ales or lagers? Both.
Both.
Okay.
There's no advantage there, and there's
questions
negatives
for you from the chat room about that.
I've gone over it on the forums and stuff, but so what I'll do is I'll brew my beer, let it ferment out, and then I'll swirl the slurry that's there and I'll put that into a sterile, truly sterile Nalgene bottle. And I'll let the yeast separate. Sometimes I will mix that with sterile water, which I also make in the pressure cooker, or you can use something like Budweiser, which is pretty much sterile, and use that to clean out your yeast, and separate it from the trub.
There's a use for it. It's awesome.
And then but you can get a good pitchable amount of yeast out of that. But again, be as sterile as you can. Keep everything clean.
All right, let me break us up there from the... I think we're going to move on from yeast here in a minute, but I got a few questions to get to because we want to get to the fermentation too. First, I just want to say that we are here with Jamil Zainasheff, in case you're just tuning in, and both Jamil and John, by the way, are featured in this month's edition of Zymergy magazine because of the National Homebrew Competition. So pick up a copy of Zymergy. You'll see a picture of both of their ugly mugs on there with their medals and having one batch, one first places and second places and third places, and I don't even know what else.
I will say John has become a really great brewer.
Yeah, it's good beer.
He started out crappy, but he's really gotten good. He's paid attention.
I went to the grind.
He's paid attention. He's put a lot of effort into it, and he's really become good. And the other thing I want to say before I forget is... I had some problems with Y yeast at one time from a bad supplier, not Y yeast themselves. Y yeast makes a great product.
Yeah.
If you're using Y yeast, continue to use Y yeast, great product. If you're using White Labs, continue to use White Labs, great product.
Okay.
Both of them are run by, homebrewer interested people that really care about the homebrewers and the pro brewers, and you can't go wrong either way. They're both fantastic.
All right. And then I just want to announce that my moment of glory is over. The chat room is right back to asking their normal questions of me, which is, Justin, when are you finally going to stop bringing it weak and start brewing all grain? So these are back to the questions I usually get.
Beer Mortar is going to build you a B3 500 out here.
What do you mean you hear? Who said that?
I tell you don't need to go all grain.
You said that? See, I'm not positive I need to go all grain either.
Fermentation's far. You can beat the snot out of anybody in competition with extract if you ferment properly.
Fermentation.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say no to a sculpture, am I?
No. all grain's fun.
What's that rumor, John?
Talk to Olin. It's been arranged, and
is it Olin's rumor?
Yeah.
Then it's not really a rumor, is it?
No. I'm actually just setting him up.
Yeah, you're just making it up, aren't you? Yeah. Because my answer to the question would be, when I get a free all grain kit, because all my money's going into I don't know what it's going into. The Brewing Network right now.
Those B3 guys are really generous, though.
They are awesome. So. They're totally cool. So there you go. My moment of glory with my first official question is over.
Well, if we get you brewing on it and do a video, that'd be awesome.
That would be sweet.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to shoot out a couple questions. I want quick answers because they're all about yeast, and then let's move on to the rest of the fermentation. First is, if you use a 2-liter starter, which we were talking about with DME, doesn't the starter or DME flavor come across and mess with your award-winning beer, Jamil?
Well, that's one of the things I had mentioned a little bit earlier. You can, most of the time, no. It's going to be very hard to tell the difference, unless you really know what you're doing. No. But, make a big enough starter to work, and then ferment it out fully and chill it and just decant the liquid if you want.
Okay. Do you pitch, I think we already know the question. The question is, the answer rather. Do you pitch the whole 2,000 milliliter starter? Which
yes.
You do.
A pitcher, not a catcher. You bet.
Right. And then finally, how do you store your yeast for up to a year?
Slants. That's the only way to store yeast for a year.
Okay.
Certain yeasts will store really well. Lager yeast generally do. Certain yeasts will store very poorly. Wheat yeasts, all the Hefe yeasts, store like crap. And like California ale is more towards is better. English ale yeast doesn't store very well.
Okay.
Slants.
I thought we were going to get off it, but I got more quick answers for you. Okay, so there's that one. How do you wash your yeast?
I generally don't. If I do, it's just to separate out the majority of the trub. And I'll do sterile water and just shake it up in a sterile Nalgene bottle, and the trub drops to the bottom in moments, and the yeast is all the clear, creamy stuff on top.
Oh, okay.
Or you can use a lot of people use Coors Light or a Budweiser because the carbonation helps to lift the yeast up. But healthy yeast doesn't need any lifting, so
and then you scoop it off the top, or what?
No, I just decant it, pour it off. So
okay.
Just before I pitch, I'll just shake it up with some sterile water, and all the creamy yeast is at the top. And I just pour that into the beer, and all the crud's left in the last 100 or 200 milliliters.
Nice. Cool. And say, what's this? You can either use Coors or Bud, and what was the solution you used? You just
sterile water.
Sterile water. Okay.
Yeah, I just put water in a ball jar and pressure cook it.
Okay. And then earlier, were you saying, were you saying 1 vial of yeast per 1 liter, or split a single vial between the 2 liters that you're going to do?
Well, 1 vial in 2 liters of water, you can split it or whatever. It's hard to get it exactly balanced, but one vial in 2 liters will do.
Because it's multiplying either way.
And it's what White Labs recommends as well.
Okay.
White Labs believes that 1 vial of 30 to 60 billion cells into 2 liters of wort will give you 240 billion cells, which is the appropriate pitching rate for 5 gallons of 12 Plato 1048 wort. Again, if you're doing lagers, 1.5 to 2 times that amount of cells.
Okay.
Again, it's about 5 billion cells per degree of original gravity that you need.
So would that be to say then you would do 4 liters and 2 vials if you were doing a lager?
Yes.
Okay. 4 liters, 2 vials. Otherwise, you're fine with 2
so
liters,
about a
1
gallon
vial
starter.
split between.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
You might get away with 3, and again, if you brew a real weak batch to start with, you can take the yeast off of that, just drink that, and go into your next beer. And maybe that first beer isn't so great, but the follow-on beers are really great.
Okay. How about using a stir plate for starters?
Stir plate will increase your cell count. No matter what anybody says, it generates. And it keeps it in suspension, and you definitely see a lot more yeast with a stir plate.
And you just keep that on the whole time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just you do your starter.
Yeah.
When you're boiling, you have your little, there's a stir bar that'll go in your Erlenmeyer flask.
Yeah.
Drops to the bottom, it's magnetic. Then, when you pitch your yeast, just set it on the stir plate, start it up, and let it go, and you'll increase your cell count. So, if I was doing just 1 tube into a liter, I would use a stir plate for sure.
You would, okay.
Yeah, I'd use it anyways. If you, again, you're talking about degrees of difference, and I think just doing what you're doing, makes a huge difference. Justin.
I go do a little stir shake every hour or so. Actually, even less when I do it just before I brew. The whole brew process, I'm going over like every 20 minutes, half an hour, and giving it a shake. I'm doing the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Not as efficient?
Yeah, the stir plates really do make a big difference.
Okay.
But it's like $75-$80.
Yeah, to get it.
Somebody on the B3 forums posted how to make one out of spare parts.
Oh, nice.
And
I love that.
You know,
I love when brewers do that. Just
yeah,
making it.
No, and B3 loves that too.
Yeah.
They don't care if they sell any stir plates or not.
Okay, so if you got a stir plate, use it. Let's see, is this another one? Okay, we can move that to the next segment. Okay, and then the final thing is, and then we discussed this already, I don't know if it was the delay, but we'll just do it real quick. It's going over washing the trub off of yeast, and that's the using sterilized water, put it in there, the trub's gonna fall to the bottom, the creamy good stuff's gonna stay at the top.
Yep.
Or use Budweiser or Coors, because the carbonation will get it to the top, right?
Yeah, the more viable yeast will stay in suspension longer.
Okay, so that's how you're getting the trub off your yeast.
Yep.
All right. I think we're going to take a real short break, and then we're going to come back, and we've got our yeast ready, right? Yeah. We've done our yeast starter. We've got the proper amounts ready. I'm assuming that the wort has been prepared properly. It's been cooled down, and we're about to pitch our yeast, and we can probably take it from there. Does that sound all right, guys?
Right.
Okay, let's do that. I'll play a little more blues for you. It's going to be a short break, just long enough to give you guys a song, and then come back and refill your beer, by the way, while you're doing it. Maybe take a pee. It's been a long show so far, and then we'll play some more blues. How about some Slim Harpo? Would that be good?
Yeah.
See, that's another good name.
Slim Harpo.
Slim Harpo. It's just good.
He's got to be like 350.
It's the Brewing Network. We'll be right back.
This is Johnny P. and Justin, and we're the Brewcasters on the Brewing Network.
All right, so let's keep going with this here. I got more blues playing for you.
I got a girl. She left me that day.
Nice, so that's Little Walter right there.
Yeah, keep it going, man.
Actually, Little Walter actually looks little. I got a picture of him here. You might be the only guy in the blues who's actually little when they call him little. Yeah, because sometimes they make fun of him. Sometimes they get their name not because they're doing the opposite, but because he was actually like the little guy around. Yeah. And then they're like, yeah, there's Little Walter. Yeah. And it turns out he ended up making some of the best blues ever. Yeah. I'll play Little Walter when we take the next break. How about that? Let me make sure I get that right. I'll click him, highlight him there. Okay, so
we're going to pitch yeast.
We're going to get into our pitching of yeast, and I got a question about hot and cold break. I'm not sure if I should ask it here or wait till we get into the pitching of yeast. Let's ask it right now. Let's just get to it so I can get it out of the way, because I got other questions about about your secondaries and whatnot that I'm going to wait till later. But this one is, how much of the hot and cold break goes into the fermenter?
When I do ales, I really don't care how much hot and cold break gets in the fermenter. I try and leave some behind in the kettle, but you can double bunch. When you're doing lagers, you want to get all the hot and cold break out.
Really?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
What I do is I transfer to usually a more beer conical.
Okay.
And I'll put that in the fridge, and I will chill that down to about 43 degrees. A large percentage of the cold break forms in that range between 70 some odd and 40 some odd.
Okay.
Once you get down about in the 40s, you got most of the cold break out. So I'll let that takes 8 hours. That takes 8 hours. Mm-hmm. And then I will and I'll increase my batch size to like 6.5 gallons.
Okay.
And I will drop a gallon of that wort out with all the cold break.
Gotcha.
After that, I will oxygenate and pitch then.
How about for us poor folk who can't do a more beer conical?
You can do it in carboys and just rack from one carboy to another.
Okay, now that's what I used to do. Well, I only do ales, and I've stopped doing that since actually speaking to you on the show last time. I don't do that. What I used to do is put, even before I pitched, same thing. I put my wort, dumped it all into a carboy, filled it up to the right. I'd do the same thing. I'd go up to 6 gallons, 6.5, because all that trub is going to sit at the bottom, and then I would rack it to another carboy. Maybe when Daniela does her Helles, we'll have to do that because we don't have a conical head.
Lagers are important. In ales, you're not going to notice that flavor from the trub. The only negative on the trub is that when you go to repitch that yeast, the trub can coat the yeast cells and prevent it from proper uptake and various things. But it's really not that important to ales.
Okay. If you have a full boil kettle, whether it's 5 or 10 gallons, an awesome way that John does it to reduce trub is you can have this little plate welded inside the bottom of your kettle.
Diverter plate.
A diverter plate. So you got your spigot down there.
Mm-hmm.
You'd put the diverter plate. It's about 1.5 inches or so away from the side.
It goes about around a third of the inside of the kettle.
Right. Yeah. Which is the reason that you do a whirlpool. Now you can do a whirlpool anyway, but the diverter plate's even better. So you got your diverter plate in there, which is it's about 1.5 inches high, and it's 1.5 inches away from the side of John's kettle. Mm-hmm. And you do a good whirlpool, and all of your trub sits then in the middle, and as you're sucking out all the wort, the diverter plate holds it back. And you end up with it. Although you also use a conical, and I've seen you also kind of remove a little bit from the bottom of your conical too, right?
There's also, even though you're transferring post-boil, I mean, there's a difference between chilling it with an immersion chiller and a counterflow chiller.
Yeah.
I use a counterflow, and all that cold break ends up in my conical.
Okay.
For ales, I actually just leave it in there and pitch my yeast anyways.
Well, I'll tell you, the greatest thing I come across lately, one of the things I've discovered is chilling with, before you buy a counterflow chiller or a plate chiller, keep your immersion chiller, buy yourself a pump. Hook that pump up to the output of your kettle, hook up a hose, go right back into your kettle, and whirlpool using that, and use your immersion chiller. And your temp will drop faster than any counterflow I've used, any plate chiller I've used, and the resulting cold break will all drop to the bottom. You get a nice trub pile.
Say that one more time, would you?
So what I've done is I take my immersion chiller and set that in my kettle.
Okay.
I hook up my pump to the output of my kettle. There's a spigot out.
Yeah.
Right. I take a piece of hose, goes right back to a piece of copper that I put in underneath the top of the wort.
Okay. Just underneath the top layer?
Yeah, so you're not, splashing it back in, but it's underneath.
Okay.
And then it points to the side, and I turn the pump on. It will spin the wort. It'll create a whirlpool.
Gotcha.
And I do that a few minutes before the end of the boil to sanitize all the tubing and the pump and all that. Then I turn on my immersion chiller, and you would not believe how fast the temperature drops. I told Chris at More Beer this, and he tried it.
Yeah.
He didn't believe it.
Okay.
He tried it. He's stunned. He loves it.
Wow.
And, the temperature drops extremely fast. The sanitation is less of an issue than a counterflow or a plate chiller.
Yeah.
It's cheap. It's fast and easy. You get a nice true pile in there, and you're leaving your cold break behind. And on an ale, if I could leave the true behind, I would.
Okay.
But I'm not gonna do extra transfers and stuff and build up my bacterial load.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna leave it in there. However much gets in there.
But if it's part of your chilling process, then awesome.
Right.
So
and the diverter plate, it's a great idea as well.
Before you actually even finish the boil, you're starting to run it through this piece of copper,
right.
Your wort back up to the top and create your wort.
Sanitize that. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. You're sanitizing it with hot wort?
Yep.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. That's a really good idea.
It's so easy and so effective.
And be careful.
Yeah, anytime you're dealing with
boiling
and
you can the great thing is you can dial in. I put a probe thermometer in there, and I can watch the temperature drop. When it reaches the temperature I want to pitch at, I turn the pump off and turn the water off.
Okay. Wow. So how quick are we talking here?
It'll drop 100 degrees in the first minute.
That's incredible.
For whatever size.
1 minute.
Okay. Yeah, it's within seconds. You can. the dial just.
So you're getting more surface area of your wort spinning around. That's hitting that.
I mean, it's spinning fast. It'll spin so fast. With the More Beer pumps that they sell, it'll shut down the boil. It spins so fast.
Interesting.
All right, then what about filtering wort before pitching for a lager?
No. Some trub is actually necessary for appropriate nucleation sites for the CO2 to form.
Okay.
If you don't do that, the CO2 builds up to a level that George Fix, God bless him, he was right. Read George Fix. George was right. Do the experiments yourself.
Can I make a shirt that said George was right?
That's a good idea.
I
want one.
Sweet.
I'll buy one right now.
All right.
He did experiments with filtering out all the trub, and the problem is the CO2 level build up to a point where it really stops the yeast from fermenting.
Okay.
You need a little bit of trub in there, and what happens is, or a cold break, when you chill the wort down, even to freezing, you don't get all the cold break out. I mean, it looks like it, but there's still cold break in there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's fine. Chill it down in the 40s, drop out what's there and pitch, and there's just enough trub in there to provide the nucleation sites for the CO2 to properly let the CO2 out.
Okay. Okay, so we've got our yeast ready. We've now done what we need to do with our trub. We've transferred our wort. We've chilled our wort, and we're putting it into our fermenter.
Right.
Let's talk about an ale, just because we need a specific example. So you're brewing an ale. You have it in your fermenter. What temperature are you going for a pitch?
Depends on the strain of yeast, and it depends on what style you're brewing. Like I think it was Matt or Vinny were talking about in previous shows about when you're doing a Belgian, it's much warmer.
Okay.
When you're doing any other kind of ale, it's much cooler.
Okay.
So most ales, I would say, are in the 65 to 68 range, 65 to 70 range.
Okay.
Belgians tend to be 70 to as high as 85. AleSmith in San Diego, they do their Horny Devil at 85 degrees.
Okay.
Which is really intense, but it's a great beer.
I pitch hot because I don't have a wort chiller of any sort. I do the old take my kettle and put it in a bath of ice in the sink kind of deal. And I get it cold relatively a lot faster than you would think just putting it in a sink. It's a smaller kettle, I'm not doing a full 5-gallon boil either. So I'm getting it down quick, and then I'm adding cold water to it too when I get it up to my proper volume. But even still, according to my temperature gauge, which is the stick-on dealie on the side of my carboy, I'm up at like 80 sometimes, 79, 80 when I'm throwing when I'm pitching, pretty much every time. And then I'm trying to, like with this particular batch, I'm trying to get it down to temperature right away. I put it right into my water bucket, so I can get it at proper fermentation temperature. So how important is it for me that I'm pitching at such a high temperature like that, and then dropping it down to proper fermentation? And basically, I'll tell you why. I didn't want to wait around. I brew later in the day. It gets late at night. I'm looking at 2 a.m. here when I'm pitching. I don't want to wait. So what am I doing there?
People pitch warm also on lagers, and I think it's a big mistake. Pitch at the temperature you want to ferment at. A couple of degrees, no big deal, but 10, 15 degrees, it's a big deal. It's more important to make your starters, and I think you're doing a good job there. If I was to buy something for my brewery and I was just starting out, a kettle to do full wort boils and a chiller.
Okay.
That's what I would buy right away.
Am I talking about off flavors here and what I'm doing?
Yeah, you're going to end up with a lot more esters.
Okay.
Fusel alcohols, things like that. There's quite a bit that's formed in the very beginning. If people say, well, it's doing its replication phase and its aerobic phase and all that to start out.
Yeah.
But that's very brief, and fermentation starts and.
But if you're doing a lager and you could pitch at that temperature, let's say 70, 75, but you could chill it to a lager temp in 12 hours, you're still in the aerobic stage. You've helped your yeast multiply.
You guys should arm wrestle about
it. Well,
I
know John does that, and John makes very good beer, but,
but he's wrong.
For me, John makes very good beer.
Yeah.
John makes award-winning beer.
That's what I would do with my lagers, so I'm just curious.
Definitely go his route. Now, I told you before that the way to go was
I'm not going to take all your secrets. I mean,
I like this actually.
I used to do that myself.
Okay.
And what I found was that once I learned to really judge beer, I started realizing that there were some off flavors there, and maybe not every judge picks it up, but there are some off flavors there. And the things that the brewers in Germany do, who they really know lagers there, they really know what they're doing. They chill down into the 40s and they pitch and they let the temperature come up. That's the appropriate way to do it. You get the cleanest possible lager that way.
Okay.
And and every time I hear somebody say, well, I've never had a problem with that. I do it this way and I've never had a problem.
Yeah,
it's like, I used to think that too until I actually learned how to detect a lot of things in beer and spend a lot of time judging. And then I realized, I do have a problem with that. You know,
Okay.
what I'm doing is causing a problem.
Okay.
And now I can actually detect it. And
well, let me say this. Let me talk about because I want to talk to you about this, John. Actually,
Sure.
And I like this that you guys have a differing opinion, and we've only seen it once before with a caller, where a caller called in and said, "Doc, I think you're wrong, and this is what I do," and I love that because homebrewers do have different opinions about how it works out, and their opinions are formed about the end result of their beer.
Sure.
And Jamil, you're commenting on that by saying, "Hey, I thought my beer was great, and then now I realize as I learn more about it, it could have been better."
Right.
But still, people have different answers. So, John, had I asked you the same question, disregard what Jamil just said, it sounds like, about that I pitch hotter and then I bring it right down to fermentation temperature. It sounds like you would have told me, that's fine. Is that what you would have said to me?
Well, Jamil knows a little bit more about the science part of it, but
Doesn't matter.
My whole thing is if yeast like warmth, and if it's lager or ale yeast, and if you're throwing it in warm, you're giving it a chance in the aerobic stage to actually start growing and multiplying.
Okay.
And then if you can control it and manipulate it, before it starts peaking, before that peak ends, I feel that you can actually have more yeast, healthier yeast, to actually last a longer, colder lager temperature.
Okay. Now that sort of was my thought process, and you alluded to my thought process when you said people think, hey, it's just the beginning, they're still doing their thing, no big deal. And that's what I thought too, because I'm going, hey, I still got a week of fermentation here.
But he's talking about
what John's talking about is a failure to pitch an appropriate amount of yeast into your beer to start with. See, he's trying to make up for not pitching enough yeast. Pitch enough yeast in the first place. You don't have to worry about as much growth.
Even if it's cold?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Pitch enough yeast to start with. And you don't need to worry about giving it a hot environment to do lots of replication.
Yeah.
It'll replicate just fine at lager temperatures. That's what lager yeast does.
I do a half-gallon starter for a 10-gallon batch.
That's not enough.
Okay, well,
let's
talk about the standard American lager that I brewed last year. I did a 5-gallon pitch for a 50-gallon
1,000 billion
batch.
cells for a 10-gallon batch of lager.
1,000 billion cells. But the beer still finished out pretty dry, though.
I just feel good about going to bed at night knowing that my yeast are warm and fuzzy. Is that not good enough?
Well, see, I think the only thing I can understand that why you would not want to do it warm is because you're in that first 24 hours. Potentially those yeast would produce off flavor.
The ester.
Also,
well, he picked up the beer that it produced a vegetative flavor.
If you're also brewing this beer and the yeast are stressed in trying to, you're not pitching enough. See, the thing is,
I am pitching enough.
Everybody's trying to come up with these solutions around pitching enough. The solution is to pitch enough healthy yeast. That's what I keep saying. It's like, on the majority of beers that I taste, people haven't pitched enough healthy yeast, and that's where the flaw is.
So if you pitch enough healthy
you
yeast
don't
at
have
a
to
colder
worry about
temperature,
exactly.
Okay.
You got enough. You got to make sure you got enough yeast to pitch.
But you're pitching at what, 40, 42 degrees?
43, 44.
And they're going to survive. They're going to be alive still.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And as you bring them up, they come back to life. They're like, all right, here's sugar.
They're fermenting at 43, 44 degrees.
Wow.
Don't be so agreeable, John. Tell him he's wrong.
Well,
no,
it worked. It worked. But it's an interesting, because I believe that you need temperatures to help grow yeast.
I think John, you could make even better beer. You could beat Daniela's future Munich Helles. You could beat that by pitching the appropriate amount of yeast to start with.
You can beat. I like that hers is the standard.
Jamil.
What you're doing right now is fine for a starter for that batch that will be the ultimate.
Right.
Right. So I've had your beer, and your beer is excellent.
Right.
Your beer could be, flawless. God's gift to beer. If you,
I'm going to do a blind experiment on this one.
You got to pitch the extreme amount of yeast.
Okay.
All right, couple of things. While we're I got a lot of questions from the chat room. So while we carry on with these, can we open up one of your beers that you brought, Jamil?
Yeah,
I'd like to drink one of yours. We got some empty taster glasses here, so maybe you can grab one of those. Jamil brought in some beers, and this could be interesting for discussion later on. I think we're going to do a long show tonight. I'm fine with that if you guys are. Jamil brought some beers that he's aged for quite a while, so we can maybe talk about how fermentation, proper fermentation allows you to store beer longer. Because if you get some bugs in there, you can't store it as long, and if you don't ferment properly, you can't store it as long. So we'll taste some of his right. aged beers, and then a bit later on this discussion, get into how we can age them longer, like he has, and see if they're even any good.
Well, the thing that Jamil does right is he's clean. I mean, he enters beers that are like 3 to 5 years old, and they still do very well. So
I shower too.
He looks real clean. He does look like a clean guy. But you're a computer guy too on your off time, right? So all computer guys look clean, except for my dad.
Oh no, I work at a company, man. There's some nasty looking computer geeks.
My dad's a computer guy. He's all hairy all over the place and sloppy looking. What are you gonna do? Okay, here's some more questions about this temperature thing. Do you cool your lager down to 50 in pitch? Do you cool your starter down to 50? Palmer's book says to pitch starter to the wort at the lower temperatures. What are your comments? And I think that's what we're going through. Your comments are to get it down to fermentation temp and do it, which may not necessarily be 50.
Right. So lagers, I get down to 43, 44 degrees.
Oh, okay.
I drop my tube, oxygenate, then I pitch my starter. I usually put my starter in the same environment that my lager is. Now, and that's if I'm doing a starter on something like that. Usually, I will for a first batch. But then after that, I'm repitching, and I've got yeast solids. I've got 500 mils of yeast solids to pitch.
But this is when you have a starter active the morning of you pitched. You put it in 43 degree Fahrenheit environment, and then you're going to pitch at that temperature.
The starter you can do it at a higher temperature. It'll be all right, and pitch to cold. It'll be okay. But I would start to bring it down. I don't worry too much about. There's a rule of like 1 degree per day or something like that, or so many degrees per day. And I really don't worry about that a whole lot. I give my yeast plenty of time at the temperature that they need.
Okay.
But,
quick answer. Let's do a couple of quick answers. What do you think's the difference between the stick-on thermometer, which I used, and the thermometer you put inside the fermenter?
I was very much all over more beer to do that insert into the fermenter for the temperature probe. Mm-hmm. There was a very well done experiment and article in it was either Brew Your Own or Zymergy. I think it was Zymergy, which is a part of the benefits of joining the AHA. You get Zymergy subscription. And the guy proved that the temperature on the outside of the glass is within like a half degree of the center of the wort as it ferments. So I think the stick-on thermometers are just fine. I would not worry about that. What we're drinking is a 3.5-year-old Russian Imperial Stout.
This is malty.
Damn it. That's... All right, I'm going to say this. And I'm going to say it.
It's good.
I'm just going to say it.
Say it.
I've been saying it to people who ask me about Jamil on the show. I haven't said it in any print or broadcast form. I've said it leisurely to friends. Jamil, I'm a beer snob. I long before I was home brewing, I was a beer snob, but then it was all craft brews and things like that. I've drank a lot of beer. Your beer, both on the last show you've come in and then tasting that right now, your beer is the best beer I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I swear I'm not, this has nothing to do with the show or anything else. I'm just talking about a beer guy. It is, Danielle is shaking her head and agreeing, and she's German. She knows I've had great beer from her country. Your beer is literally the best beer I've ever had in my life. It's so beer-like, like without any extra junk and bad taste and off flavor and being old from the story about it and I'm telling you, it's such good beer.
There's another bottle there that John hasn't opened. I think he's...
To me, actually, Jamil's beer always reminds me of the beer back home because it seems to be so pure and good and brewed like the Reinheitsgebot and what beer is expected to be. I never get this beer here in America, unfortunately.
You don't?
No, I never have the same feeling drinking beer like at home.
Yeah.
But Jamil's beer is just different.
It's
truly something
very
else.
high compliment. My favorite brewery is the Eying Brewing and Eying. That's my favorite lager yeast as well. I mean, they are just spectacular. Those guys really know what they're doing.
We have a person.
That's my mecca.
A friend just hanging in the studio, another beer connoisseur. He just tried Jamil's beer. I'm just curious. Joe, grab that microphone there and just, you're a beer fan too. You're not a home brewer, but a beer fan, and you just drank his, what is it? Say again. It's a 3-year-old Imperial Stout?
3.5-year-old Russian Imperial Stout.
Russian Imperial Stout. What do you think of that?
I'm not a fan of the stout at all, but that was really tasty. That was tasty.
You sound like, why can't I don't know his singer. I'm so white right now.
Yeah.
Joe, who's the guy? Come on, Mr. Soul.
Barry White.
Barry White.
Like
Yeah.
Barry White. I didn't even realize you sound like that.
Say I love you, baby.
Before I put you on the microphone.
Say I love you, baby.
I love you, baby.
Wow. Joe, we're going to bring you back at just random moments during the show to give us some Barry White impressions.
That's excellent.
My goodness.
Beer orgasm.
But what do you think? Your opinion of the beer, huh?
I love it. It's good stuff. I don't really like stouts at all. Per se, I don't ever go for stouts, but that's good.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things, so this is a 3.5-year-old beer. If there were any bugs in there, or more bugs in there, what you'd end up with is a thinner beer with lots of carbonation.
Yeah.
And so the carbonation at this point is the same as when it went into the bottle. And that's telling that, there's nothing else in there because there's a lot of dextrins left over in there to make it kind of that rich, creamy feel.
Yeah.
Well, how do you do that? I mean, how do you get your beer clean from fermentation into the bottle?
Pour the rest of that bad boy and open the other one.
Yeah, let's get some more.
And then,
well, I think part of it, I don't. And unless you have new things to add, I'd rather them listen to the archive, because you did talk a lot about your sanitizing.
Right.
And using the oven, the pressure cooker, right? I would guess that has something to do with it.
And you boil your counter pressure filler, right? You boil the parts, you take it apart?
Once a year, I take my counter pressure filler completely apart, I soak it in hot PBW, and then I boil all the parts. Sanitation, I read about people like scrubbing and sanitizing their boil kettle and their mash tun and all that, and that's nonsense. You don't need to do that. I got a good protein layer built up in my boil kettle.
Nice, and you like that.
Who cares? I mean, I got somebody who just freaks out when he sees it, but that doesn't matter. Okay. It's everything. Once that wort leaves that boil kettle, that's when you're interested. That's the majority of your focus of your time. The other part is nonsense.
So Jamil's, he makes an excellent point that at 3.5 years, this ale sitting in that bottle, if there was anything in there, this is the point where it's going to be at its worst. Yeah, maybe another couple years, but you get the point. It can't sit for that long and have bugs in it and come out this good. So there you go. Sanitation, and then a proper and quick and strong fermentation to suppress whatever bugs are left in there, because as we've said, you're never going to get them all out. That's the key. And then you're not talking about a beer that you have to drink within 6 months or whatever else. You can really age it like this one. Mm-hmm. This is a great Imperial Stout. Good head on it
Imperial
still.
Stout, and I've had porters, and I've had 60 shilling ales. It's not the alcohol, it's the sanitation. And I've had beers that I entered chocolate hazelnut porter in the nationals this year, and it was the very first one I brewed, and it was 4 or 5 years old when I entered. I had one bottle left over, I just threw it in for grins, and it blazed.
Okay.
And it's like, well, if they're clean, they'll last.
They'll last. Okay, do this for me quick, and then I'm going to say refer to the archive as well with this one. So if you can just give us the numbers again. Can you recap the appropriate amount of yeast for low, medium, and high gravity ales? Just kind of quickly, what are they?
You need 5 billion cells per 1 degree of gravity, or one point of gravity. So in a Plato, you need 20 billion cells per Plato for 5 gallons of wort.
So what's the volume? That's a 1 liter pitch.
A tube of White Labs has between 30 and 50 billion cells, so figure about 40 billion cells.
Yep. For a regular gravity, we're talking here.
Right. So that's pitchable into 8 degrees of Plato, which is 1032.
Okay.
Which is like a mild or an ordinary bitter.
Okay.
And a activator pack from Y yeast is about 100 billion cells, which is appropriate for 20 degrees 5 Plato, which is I messed up here.
It's okay.
I've been drinking.
I think what we're looking at is we're looking at 2 liters of active yeast.
The 2-liter active yeast will get you to from a 1 tube of White Labs. A 2-liter active yeast will get you to a 5-gallon pitchable at 1048.
Okay. So for a regular one,
if you're gonna, you're doing IPAs and stuff like that, and you're in the 1060s and stuff like that, do 2 tubes of White Labs into a 2-liter starter for 5 gallons, and then you're dialed in.
You're good. What about for a high gravity?
The higher the gravity gets, the more intense the yeast needs get.
Okay.
It's not a linear effect.
But would you in general, would you double it like you would a lager?
Yeah, but again, so 1048, 1 tube, 1060, 2 tubes, you get up to 1080 or something like that. You really should be repitching from a previous batch. So sanitation is important, so you can repitch and have clean yeast.
Yeah.
If you can do that, you can just your yeast problems are over.
Are the yeast healthier?
But if you can't, 4 tubes of yeast into 2 liters or a gallon, and and that for a 1080 to 1-1.
Well, are the yeast healthier when you repitch?
They can be, and that's something also that John and I have talked about is, the very first pitch is not very healthy. It's slightly different conditions. As you repitch yeast, and commercial brewers should tell you this as well. The 3rd through the 10th pitch is magic. The first and second pitch are so, and the yeast really get dialed into your process, and you've got enough yeast solids that you're really making a big difference. And so repitching, if work on sanitation, and so you can repitch, and being able to repitch gets you some really great beers. All the award-winning brewers repitch.
Okay.
Same thing for that's why every craft brewer that you talk to
they repitch. Yeah, yep. You're absolutely right.
Now, if you were to store repitched yeast, but not actually put on a slant tube, how would you do it? And what's the life expectancy?
What
of
I use
repitch?
is a sterile Nalgene bottle. I swirl the carboy, I pour it in there in a sterile environment, put the cap on, put it in the fridge, and then when I'm ready to reuse it, I add sterile water, shake it up, and pour off the creamy stuff. Your yeast is going to last for a week or 2 weeks. You have to be. What I do is I sequence my beers. I say, well, all these beers can be brewed with the same type of yeast.
Yeah.
And so these 10 beers are all going to be brewed from this pitch. And I start off with like an ordinary bitter for my English ale.
Yeah.
And I'll go through all my English beers in the following weeks. For California Ale, I'd start with a Scottish, which I use California Ale yeast, and I do all my California Ale beers off of that. My lagers, same way. And, repitching. It's not about saving money, it's about making the best beer. But you cannot repitch unless your sanitation is very, very good.
Yeah. I gotta tell you, I am so afraid of repitching, it's unbelievable.
Then,
because I don't want anything to do with it. I want to see you do it.
Go with starters.
I'll tell you that. I want to watch you do it. But yeah, you're right. I think, just keep doing starters and healthy yeast. I'm so afraid of wasting a whole batch of beer because I didn't get a proper repitch. I didn't get my yeast from the last batch clean enough. I didn't, you know what I mean? And I don't want anything to do with it right now until I can see it done and then kind of take it from there and then give it a go. Because I just don't want to waste a whole batch of beer.
Yeah, don't blame you. It's worth your $5.50.
Yeah, exactly. But Jamil's right. If you're really training your yeast, and if you get a good batch and you go, okay, that yeast worked awesome.
Yeah.
I want to make it go to work again. You're just going to make better beer if you can learn to do that.
Well, I've heard Jamil say too that they start to produce their natural flavors down the line in their 3rd generation and on up.
Yeah.
Or their flavors might come through more because
it's a difference between propagation, which the yeast companies are doing, and brewing and fermentation. There is a difference there.
Well, wouldn't they produce a more natural flavor, which they produce naturally just because they're healthier yeast?
It's pretty darn close. The problem is in pitching too few yeast cells, and you end up with different flavors under pitching than you do when you pitch correctly. And, by repitching, I think that's probably one of the biggest things. If you, to pitch properly with, a vial of White Labs, you need 6 vials of White Labs to pitch into a 1048 wort for 5 gallons. 6 vials.
6 vials.
If you could do that, if you can afford that, that's an appropriate pitching rate, and you're going to turn out some awesome beer. The problem is people don't do that, and, by repitching, you're getting enough yeast.
Hey guys,
You know,
I think I'm not cutting.
If you go Y yeast, a Y yeast activator pack, those giant packs.
Yeah.
Those are each one of those is worth 2 White Labs vials.
Right.
I love White Labs. I love Chris White. Great company, great products, awesome. It's just a fact of life that the activator packs have 100 billion cells, and the Y yeast tubes have 30 to 50 billion.
Okay.
Excellent products both. Use either one and make great beer, awesome beer, award-winning beer.
I just got the best request that I've ever gotten from the chat room. This is really a good one. It was from the chat room, right? Because I'm sitting here and I gotta go pee so bad, and I'm listening to you guys talk about this, and I'm loving the information, and I still gotta pee, so I can't pay attention. And Daniela passes me this note that says, "Can we take a pee break?" And I'm thinking she has to go too. And she says, "No, it's from the chat room. They want to take a pee break."
Oh,
so
cool.
They're in the same boat as I am. They don't want to leave. They don't want to leave the information,
right on.
but they gotta go pee. So we're gonna take a really quick break to go pee, and which is good for a beer show. You'll notice that the breaks get more frequent at the end because you've had more beer, and so have our listeners. So quick break. Someone wants me to play Willie Dixon. And so,
can I interrupt 1 second?
Do it.
Jamil, Jamil, at MrMalty.com.
Okay.
So if you got questions, you can go ahead and send that. I'd much prefer to come back to the show and answer all the questions on the show.
Cool.
But if you have something really urgent, I'd be glad to help you out there.
Okay. Jamil at MrMalty.com. Yeah. That's awesome. So you can ask questions direct to the guy. That's very generous of you. Yeah. You're going to get bombarded with emails now.
Yeah, well,
he already does, I think.
Help each other out.
Okay, so I'm not stopping the discussion. We're going to be right back and do it. We're just taking a pee break.
Temperature.
Okay, so here's some Willie Dixon. Dixon, how about Backdoor Man? That had to be what you were asking for, right? Willie Dixon, we'll be right back. It's the Brewing Network. We're here with Jamil Zainasheff, and we'll be back with more fermentation talk.
The Backdoor Man. I am the Backdoor Man. Well, the men don't know, but the little girls, they understand. When everybody is trying to sleep,
I was trying to make that all like sweet and nice and a smooth segue, but just didn't happen.
Let's go.
The song stopped before I knew it. I was too busy trying to get the last of Jamil's beer. I was like, is that an open bottle with Jamil's beer in it still?
It's like 2 ounces.
All right.
Is that good?
We gave you some Willie Dixon, and then I also gave you some Little Walter, which is what I know they asked for Willie Dixon in the chat room. And ask, you shall receive, as much as I can possibly give. Okay, I'm not exactly sure where we were in the fermentation process. I do know I've got a bunch of questions in front of me. I'm trying to organize them so that we stay on topic as we go, which gets difficult to do sometimes. And occasionally I have to eliminate a question. I apologize about that if we get through it. Let me do this really quick. I'm going to summarize it myself because we have a new listener. He's in the chat room. I like it when our new listeners get active right away, and he wants me to summarize yeast pitching just really quick once again. I will refer you to the archive as well, though. It'll be up next week. Since you're a new listener, you might not know that, so you can come back and listen. But here you go. I'm going to give you the real quick version, not the highly technical version, so go back and listen to the archive. You'll get the rest of it. But he wants me to summarize for a novice, should he buy a 2,000 milliliter flask, add half a pound of DME, and fill with water, and add 1 vial of White Lab when ready? I'm going to say, in general, yes.
That should be good.
Go ahead and get yourself a 2,000 milliliter flask. Put the water up. Go ahead and go above 2,000 milliliters because you're going to boil off a little bit. Add your DME to it. Boil it for 15 minutes. Put a piece of tin foil over the top of it. Just kind of lightly close it. It's gonna let the vapors out. No big deal. Boil it for 15 minutes. Set it aside. Let it cool down. You could let it cool down for 4 hours. It doesn't matter. Just let it cool down. And then pitch your vial of yeast in there. Pitch the whole vial in there. Mm-hmm. If you can't get a 2,000 milliliter for some reason, buy 2 1,000 milliliters and put half a vial in one and half a vial in the other, and then you want to pitch the entire thing into your wort. Jamil says you want to pitch it down at fermentation temperature, so if it's an ale, get it, whatever the beer is, get it to where you want to ferment it, and then pitch your yeast. John and my laziness say pitch it anyway, and then bring it right back down to fermentation temperature as quickly as you possibly can. You might make a better beer if you do it Jamil's way. You're probably going to end up with a perfectly good beer if you do it John and Mai's way. But just
make a starter.
Make a starter is the key. So there you go. Yes, buy a 2,000 milliliter flask, put the quarter pound of DME in there, pitch the whole vial of yeast, wait for it to get bubbling, put it in your wort. There you go. Happy to help. Check out the archive for the more technical answer.
Awesome.
Okay. God, so many questions here. Where are we at? Okay, so what we've done now is decided what temperature to pitch at, and there's a couple varying opinions. Let's say we've gone ahead and pitched.
The right one and the wrong one.
I like that.
I love when I'm right.
Nice, John.
And that's not today.
So, we'll try to speed the process along a bit here. Let's say that we've gone ahead and we've pitched at the appropriate temperature. We're doing an ale still. What are we going to do now?
Well, a couple of things. Before you pitch, oxygenate.
Before, not after.
No. Well, and right after, fine.
Okay.
But and there's a thing about high gravity. 12 hours later, another dose of oxygen, yada yada. But the thing is, when you're pitching, or right after you pitch, or before you pitch, dose with oxygen. Get yourself an oxygen kit or an aeration kit or whatever. Swirling the carboy just doesn't work. Okay, you need to add some oxygen. B3 sells a bunch. Northern Brewer, all these homebrew shops have some sort of oxygenation kit.
Okay,
I'm sure B3 would rather you bought it from whoever rather than not do it at all.
Yeah.
So make sure you get enough oxygen into that beer.
At Nationals, I think it was Chris or the guy from Wai's talking about to get an appropriate amount of oxygen into solution, parts per million.
Yes.
If you do natural aeration, it was 45 minutes to an hour through an air pump.
And it's impossible to oversaturate with air.
With natural aeration,
right?
Through
with oxygen, it is possible to oversaturate, but don't worry, you're not going to do that. The other thing is.
No, this aeration, natural aeration versus pure O2. You save time.
Right. It's well worth it. Again, you can go with, just an aquarium pump and a stone and all that, or swirling the carboy or whatever, and you'll make beer. It'll be fine beer.
But it's not pure oxygen. By any means,
right?
That you're putting in there.
If you've drank some of the best, German beer, some of the best English beer, some of the best Belgian beer, some of the best American beer.
Yeah.
It depends on what you want to make. If you want to make just decent beer to drink, you don't need to go through all these shenanigans. You can just make a really fine beer without all this. If you want to make the best beer possible, which most homebrewers want to do, you need to oxygenate. You need to make a starter.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because I don't want to, for first-time brewers. In fact, there's a brewer who posted on our forum who actually donated to help us out. Hasn't even brewed yet. Listened to our archives, likes the information, has not even made a batch of beer.
Just put some.
I don't want to discourage these people from all this stuff that we're talking about.
Make some sugary water, throw some yeast in there,
and you're going to drink good beer.
Yeah,
it'll be good.
Just fine.
Let me tell my first 4 batches, maybe even 5, only one of them was bad, and the only reason it was bad is because it didn't carbonate. Right? I did proper sanitation. I shook up my fermenter. I didn't oxygenate. I didn't do a yeast starter. I didn't do anything. My first beer was an IPA. One of the best IPAs I've ever drank. Mostly because I brewed it, right? It wasn't a brilliant IPA or anything, but I brewed it.
You made it.
And
you made it yourself.
And it was so drinkable. I'm not saying that I drank bad beer. I'm telling you, this beer was incredibly drinkable, and I loved it. So if you're just starting, please don't be discouraged by all this stuff. What we're talking about and those of you who have been doing it for a while, you know this already. We're just talking about refining your beer and the process and really making the stuff you want to make. And you'll grow into this too. But don't be discouraged.
Exactly.
It's so easy. It's so easy.
First few batches, just throw it together. Who cares? Just do it.
I like what you said, Jamil. Put some sugar and some water and some yeast in there.
Yeah.
Make beer.
Exactly. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It'll turn out great.
I got a caller on the air. Let me take this real quick. We'll get back to discussion. I think we got Christian. How you doing? Christian, you there?
He's playing golf.
Yeah, he was on hold for too long. He thinks he's still on hold.
You're not a golf pro, man.
Well, what we're drinking right now is Alaskan Brewing.
There he is. Hang on. Hello? Are you there?
Yeah, this is Chuck, though, from Wisconsin.
Oh, it's Chuck. It's not Christian. How you doing, Chuck?
I'm doing great. How about you guys?
We're doing great, too. Thanks for calling in.
I've got a question.
Go ahead.
About using DME in making starters.
Okay.
My books call for adding 4 ounces, which would be technically half a cup of DME to X amount of water.
Okay.
All right. And there's a discussion about this, and I've got into an argument on another forum about this, that basically that, let me look at my book here. One quick second. If I took 1,000 milliliter starter of water and added 4 ounces of DME, would that give me a 1040 starter? Or and what I'm saying, that would be a half a cup. Or should I be weighing it out as volume?
1 pound of DME per gallon of liquid gives you 1040 something or other.
What he's talking about though is doing a quarter pound of DME.
Yeah, is about
but I'm doing 4 ounces, which is a half a cup.
Or half a cup. Well, you do it by weight.
Do it by weight, not by volume.
Yeah. And
because that actually would only be 2 ounces by weight, which would give me a 1020.
It's too low.
Right. But one thing is, do whatever works for you. That sounds great. You can do a hydrometer reading on that, and what you want ideally is between 1020 and 1040.
Right.
So just shoot for 1030 something, and if you go over, fine. If you go under, fine. If you're making a starter, you're worlds ahead of most homebrewers.
Yeah.
I've got 3,000 milliliter flasks. So.
There you go.
Oh, nice.
Now he's talking.
Yeah.
The big boy.
Well,
now, see? Now
and stir plates.
Jamil got a little excited there.
this guy, he's not screwing around.
You know what? That's the most animated I've ever seen Jamil in the short time I've known him. He was like, "All right, buddy."
and then I oxygenate it.
Yeah.
I've got a continuous flow through some of those things that you get at Walmart to pump air. Of course, air is only 20% oxygen anyway.
Right. Yeah. But you're using a sterile filter, like from Big 3? Yeah.
Pump it through a sterile filter.
Yeah.
And
into the starter. So you're building your yeast count. See, it won't ferment any alcohol, but you'll get a ton of yeast cells out of that.
What about putting a pellet or so in there?
Pellet of what?
Hops, you mean?
Hops.
I wouldn't worry about it. Really, hops, the advantage there is,
all it makes is a mess.
Well, preventing, contamination, it tends to fight some of the bacterial load, but I wouldn't worry about that.
Wait, you're saying a pellet would fight contamination?
The hop acids help to,
okay.
But more important would be nutrients like Cervomyces, Ferment K, things like that.
Yeah.
I use Y yeast Nutriment in it.
There you go.
Okay.
That's perfect. No problem.
But it is by volume, not by. Then that's where I was.
It's by weight.
It's by weight, not by volume.
By weight, not by volume.
Yeah. But what you're doing right now, I would not quibble with that one bit. 1020 is still fine. You'll get a little more yeast growth if you go up to like 1030. So I
like to start them at about 500 milliliters. And then take them on up to 3,000 milliliters.
Yeah, generally you do a 10-to-1, so 300 milliliters to 3,000, 500 to 3,000. Who's counting? That sounds great. Right. What you're doing is, as long as your sanitation's good, you're doing killer for your yeast, and you're pitching plenty. Unless you're pitching, how much are you pitching into?
5 gallons.
Oh yeah. No, you're set.
All right. You could maybe add a bit more DME, though, you're saying? Because if he's right at 1020, then you maybe throw a little more in there to get to 1030.
And what kind of yeast are you starting with? Are you doing Y yeast?
I do both. I do it between Y yeast and white labs.
Yeah, if you're doing the Y yeast activator packs, it's 100 billion, and you're pitching you're doing exactly what you need to be doing. At that point, as long as sanitation's good, now you can start focusing on recipe formulation and things like that.
Right.
And temperature control of fermentation, that's one thing I wanted to mention is, a steady fermentation temperature is very important.
Right.
Swings of 4 degrees or whatever, bad news. You want to keep it steady. The yeast are much happier with a steady temp, no matter what that temp is.
Stir plates tend to generate heat.
Yes.
Okay.
But that's
what
okay
I've done
in
on
the starter.
my stir plates, I've taken and put in the, like a piece of an inner tube across the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
I have heat tape across it so I can watch what the temperatures are.
Gotcha.
And then if they start to get over 74 degrees, I'll take and wrap a cold towel around them.
Nice. Just to keep it down.
Keep them down there in the 72 to 74 degree range.
Okay. Where are you at?
In Wisconsin.
I got to come visit you.
You got some good techniques.
You're my kind of guy.
That's awesome. Very nice. Hey, Chuck, you want a free vial of yeast?
Well, I always take a free vial of yeast.
Attaboy. This is courtesy of Jamil, just because he likes you. I think you're a great caller. And I got here a certificate that'll give you a free vial of White Labs that Jamil brought in to give to you. So
that's super. I need some more 838.
All right, sweet. Are you in the chat room right now?
I was a minute ago.
Okay. All you got to do is either send me an email that's on the website or go back in the chat room and talk to Daniela to give her your information so I know who gets this thing, because sometimes I forget. And we'll send you a certificate for a free vial of White Labs yeast courtesy of Jamil Zainashev.
I appreciate it.
Hey, Chuck, we appreciate the call. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chuck.
All right. We'll see you soon. Wow. That's an ingenuity.
That was awesome.
I like that.
Yeah.
Chuck's doing stuff.
Sharp listeners out there. But I have a question, though, for Jamil. Do you add any nutrients to your fermentation process? And if so, what?
Yeah, for most batches, I'll use Cervomyces, which is essentially gives you dead yeast as a nutrient plus high zinc level. They special feed these yeast to build up the nutrients and the minerals and stuff in the yeast, and then they kill them off, and you pitch those in, and it does a really nice job. So Cervomyces, well worth it. Some people say it makes a big difference in the initial ferment. I have not noticed that. I believe it makes a big difference in repitching, a huge difference in repitching. But some people say it makes a big difference in the initial pitch, but and they could just well be right, and I'm missing that. But I've used Servo for 2 or 3 years now.
On every batch, no matter
I'm not brewing without Servo.
Wow.
And then
is that just because you repitch a lot, or is it's a good food source?
Both, and I want the best possible fermentation. I was Sierra Nevada Homebrewer of the Year a couple times, and I went up to Sierra Nevada, and one of the things that they stressed was they were pitching zinc into their batches, and they said, and Sierra Nevada, no matter what you think of them, they are very technically advanced, and they are very concentrated on making the best possible beer and watching their yeast. And they got labs. I mean, they got labs to rival the Germans. And one of the things that they found made a big difference was pitching zinc into their batches and getting zinc.
Was it pure zinc or was it Servo?
They have like a zinc nutrient, zinc something, and they take a scoop and they pitch it in. I pitched in the zinc and the hops while I was there, and I pushed the button that changed the valve and all that stuff.
Awesome.
Sierra Nevada, I tell you, wonderful deal. If you've never been there, everyone thinks they brew like 3 or 4 types of beer. You go to the brew pub, they got 16 different beers on. Yeah. They're all spectacular.
Just don't distribute them all. I had their IPA a year ago, which I never knew existed, and I found it in a little bar that just happened to get a hold of a keg, I guess. And serious IPA. Like, I'm an IPA guy. I couldn't finish 2 of them. Not because it was bad, but because it was just a real thick kind of like a very bitter, strong. It was a good IPA, but It was hefty. I mean, it was real hefty. And they do. Jamil's right. They brew beers that you don't know about.
Go to Chico. Go to their brew house there. They have a wonderful restaurant, great food, and you get a sampler. It's like 16 different beers, all spectacular. They don't brew anything junky there.
We just opened up another one of Jamil's beers. Which one is this?
This is actually a 2004 Alaskan Brewing Smoke Porter.
Oh, it's not yours?
No.
Damn it, because I got the Band-Aid out of it. And not because I want you to be bad, but because I wanted to talk about what you could have told us went wrong with it. Did you get the Band-Aid out of it?
Well, there's a lot of phenols in it.
Okay.
And there's a lot of smoke in it.
Okay.
And that batch with the roast can kind of give you different phenols, and that's the way it's supposed to taste. I mean,
really?
It's actually...
There's no contamination there?
I think this is one of the most award-winning beers ever.
Really? And you don't... But you've had it for a while, too. Yeah. You've aged it.
It's getting a touch more sour.
Okay.
As it goes, but still pretty darn good and real smoky.
Okay. Rauch malt in this?
Oh yeah. Actually, what they do is they take I think 20% of their Munich malt and they go to a fish smoking plant and they smoke it with alderwood.
Wow.
What is alderwood? It's just this type of wood?
Wood that they have up there in Alaska. And Alaskan Brewing and Jeff Larson. Jeff Larson is the sweetest person on the planet. Just a great guy. And Alaskan Brewing is, again, into just brewing the best beer possible and, being good brewing community people.
Yeah.
So they fit right in with what you're doing and, good people. I wouldn't be surprised if Jeff would be willing to do a show with you.
Oh, all right. Well, there we go.
And
then I won't tell him his beer tastes like a Band-Aid. It was just me.
He meant to. He'd be okay with it.
What kind of speed range do you need to make a stir plate? Do you know that?
Speed.
Yeah, the RPMs, if you will.
Stop taking speed. Go on the B3 forums and look for stir plates, and there's a guy who
he makes it.
If you're interested, Jamil at MrMalty.com, and I can tell you the RPMs of the stir plate I use. It's the one B3 sells, and usually I just turn it up until I get a nice vortex in there.
Okay,
and that'll vary with the gravity of the starter and the volume of the starter.
Okay, I want to wrap things up in the next 10 minutes, because then it's going to be a real 3-hour show.
Yeah.
So, but you've done a good job, Jamil, in pushing us to the next point with the last caller, in that you started to allude to fermentation temperature. So just before that, we discussed oxygenating, and Jamil's opinion, and I can just kind of chime in real quickly. I've never oxygenated until this batch that I'm doing right now. So I'll get back to you about the difference. And not only that, but I've done proper temperature control, and I did oxygenation with an oxygen bottle down at the bottom in a sanitized
keep
stone.
Those temps steady.
All that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we covered that of shaking it probably isn't enough unless you're a novice and you're doing it for the first time. Shake that sucker up, you'll be fine. But as you get more advanced, put some oxygen in there. So now we're talking temp. And you said to this caller just a minute ago that 4-degree swings are some serious swings.
Huge. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So what are 2-degree swings okay? Or
yeah, ideally keep it steady.
I've got 2-degree swings going on right now.
Right. And that's fine.
Okay.
When you're aging beer, wines, one of the things they discovered about wine is, with all the modern fermentation or refrigeration, they were able to keep it steady at an exact temperature. They realized the wines weren't aging properly.
Okay.
And it's actually the swing in temperature that helps the wines age. So like a half a degree one way, half a degree other, and actually then the aging process occurs.
Interesting. Okay.
Now in fermentation, you don't necessarily want that.
Okay.
As steady as you can keep it, the better. And what I'll do is, if you can get yourself a used fridge or a temperature controlled conical from like B3 or whatever it is. The more you can control that temperature, the more control you have over the fermentation process.
Okay.
So the things you have are sanitation, proper yeast pitching and yeast health, and temperature control.
Okay.
Now that's what you can do to make great beer.
Okay.
Everything else is minor.
All right. Like you're saying, as far as ingredients and making the best,
ingredients,
bill that you can make and all of that kind of stuff.
That's 5%.
It all pales in comparison to proper yeast and proper fermentation temp and sanitization.
In the latest Zymergy quote is saying, fermentation is 95%. Everything else is minor.
Okay. Do we have a caller, Daniela? No, we don't have a caller. Yeah, we do now. It's ringing
Another
again.
caller.
Okay. So let's take mine for example, just so we can, just use something out there. I'm using a very popular yeast. I'm using the California ale yeast. I'm doing a pale ale, which is actually going to be borderline IPA. I always like to boost things up a little bit.
West Coast.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, I have with not doing a full 5-gallon boil, I have this theory that your gravities always come out less if you follow the recipe, and I've proven myself right time and time again. Like, for example, the recipe that John and I I brought the recipe to him and we went over it together, and we assumed I'd be up 10:55, 10:58, 10:48, because I'm not doing a full boil and I'm adding water and different sorts of things happening. Maybe other things you're shaking your head too.
Well, it's related to volume.
Okay.
Because you've put a fixed amount of sugars in there with extract.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, you're right about that.
It's just volume related.
Yeah. But
okay.
The extract does change, though, based on batch.
Well, plus I go 6 gallons instead of 5 because I know I'm going to rack off that trube, so that's going to affect it.
20% difference.
You're right. That's a whole.
That's where a refractometer comes in handy.
Okay.
Because then you can boil and say, okay, well, I'm at the right amount. Oh, it's not quite enough. I'll boil 10 minutes longer and I'll be there.
Okay. So now, I've done my batch. I did a lot of things different this time. I pitched 2 vials of yeast into only a 900 milliliter starter because I hadn't had this discussion yet.
Fine.
But and then anyway, I've been controlling the fermentation, and I did oxygenate, and then I've been controlling fermentation. I have been at between 62 and 65 the entire time. It's not really changed. So actually, I guess and it's not a completely accurate thermometer, so I can't say that it. But I know it's not gone below 62.
You're kind of guessing off of ambient temperature, too.
But, California ale yeast, 62 is quite low for California ale yeast.
It is.
I would keep it between 65 and 68.
And 68 even.
Yeah,
okay.
Because and it depends on how rapid the swing is. Mm-hmm. Once you get below 65, if that drop is pretty rapid, the yeast will drop out of solution. It'll flocculate, and it won't ferment after that until you get it hot again.
Gotcha. I also, I should say, added the yeast nutrient to my starter, and so that would have been, was that the Fermade K, or the Fermade K was what I added to my...
You add that to your fermenter after the third day.
So I did Servomyces to my starter.
To your boil.
And then I added Fermade K on the 3rd day of fermentation into my wort. So
and Fermade K is a nutrient source.
For the yeast.
Yeah, it's ammonium phosphate.
I'm just not sure that Fermade K is needed. I believe it's needed in meads and ciders, but
higher alcohol.
In an all wort all malt wort, there's plenty of amino acids and nutrients fan.
Okay.
That's needed for the ferment that you don't really need that.
Okay.
And even in most extract, they've really come a long way. So I don't think that's an issue.
Maybe not too. Okay. Well, John and I had talked about it,
and I like it.
It won't hurt. Okay. No. I like a nice dry. I was going for a really dry finish, and so John and I talked about that, and then said, okay, he did a batch with some Fermade K and got a super dry.
The type of extract you choose is going to make a bigger difference.
Ultralight.
The ultralight Alexander's is very good. The most fermenting, lightest one is probably Briess Pilsner.
Okay.
That one will really ferment further than the Alexander's. But even the guy at Briess, he said before he worked at Briess that he used the Alexander's. Sun Country. It was very good. If you want to get even drier, just put in a little bit of sugar.
Okay.
Instead of
like
extract.
Household sugar?
Yeah, replace like a half pound or a pound of the extract with just plain table sugar.
Really?
And it'll dry right out.
Why is that?
That's 100% fermentable.
Okay.
Whereas the extract is only like 70-some-odd % fermentable.
Oh.
All right.
If you get to the Briess, that's closer to like 80% fermentable.
Okay.
I know there's a lot of people that add honey or sugar to a beer. They seem lower gravity.
Honey's 100% fermentable.
Okay.
And that, if you want a dry beer, that's what's, doesn't matter what yeast you use. All these yeasts will do 15% alcohol. It's got nothing to, they're all very, very strong. Any of the yeast manufacturers will tell you that. And people have all sorts of other thoughts. And the reason that they can't get those yeast to ferment 15% is that they're under pitching, their yeast is, weakened by previous bad fermentations, things like that.
Okay. All right.
Well, we're up there, a 3-hour show here, buddy.
Yeah, but we're not done because I'm going to do a quick fire with the questions because I'd like to get these answered. So you got to cut them short.
I think I need to come back for another show.
He does.
I think absolutely.
We didn't even tap ale temperatures.
We didn't get all the way through it. I'll tell you this though. You know what I'm happy about, and I was thinking about it as we were going. What we've really done is, aside from the beginning process of choosing your ingredients and doing your boil, which we've discussed before, and anyone can figure that out when to add things. We've really covered this extremely important part of the brew process, from yeast starting to temperature control.
Yeah.
How about this? Finish it off with how long are you... actually, some of these questions are going to have to do with that. You put it in your fermenter, you're controlling your temperature like we talked about, you've done everything else. How long are you leaving it in that fermenter? Ales.
Danielle and I were talking about, how long to leave something in. And when I first started out, this is a little bit longer, but when I first started out, people told me, okay, after 1 week, you move this to a secondary fermenter and you leave all your yeast and true behind, and then it conditions in there, and then you move it to your keg and all that.
Yeah.
That was nonsense. That you end up leaving behind diacetyl, acetaldehyde, a lot of other fermentation byproducts.
Okay.
If you leave your beer on the initial yeast, it will clean all that up.
The yeast will?
Yes.
Okay.
It ferments the sugars first, and it cleans up all those byproducts.
Okay.
So what you want to do is not rush the process. Give it at least on your average ale at least 10 days. 14 days, no problem. Just keep it at fermentation temperature. It's good for a month. You're not gonna, the whole story of autolysis or it clearing somehow quicker, that's nonsense. Do an experiment. Do them side by side. You will see there is no difference. That's not doing anything. That's something that came up in home brewing, and it's just nonsense.
Okay.
Just keep it in that fermenter. Give it 14 days. You're not going to hurt anything. Take your time. Let the yeast finish. Then go ahead and put it in your keg or your bottle.
Okay. All right, good, because that was a question, was that you don't secondary, so they wanted to know about your primary.
I know it's crazy, and I know it's,
I'm going to follow it with this
batch. The earth is round.
Yeah. Let's do it.
I like that. And Columbus wasn't first either.
No.
Okay. How about this? Since you don't secondary, should we use hop bags?
You can. I don't.
Me neither.
When I dry hop, which is not that often, I just throw them into the keg, pellets into the keg.
What about boil, though? I think that's an important question even for boil.
I tried it a few times. It's a big mess, and it's a big hassle.
Yeah.
I don't care if some hop bits get in the fermenter, especially on an ale. On a lager, I care, but on an ale, who cares?
I get all my hop bits, though. Is that okay?
That's fine. It's going to be hoppier.
Okay.
That's all.
Here's why. I started out using hop bags, because that's what the little guide says.
Yeah,
but I then read about hop. It is a pain. I burnt my fingers doing it. But I also read about hop utilization, and you need that stuff to turn in the boil to really get it out.
Yeah, you're not getting as much hop utilization. You have to adjust for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pennies, but,
So go ahead and just chuck it in there.
Yeah, exactly.
And then overfill your fermenter a bit, right? Like instead of 5, do 6.
If you're going to rack it, especially on lagers, I don't bother on ales. I really don't.
You don't?
I don't think trub and hop bits and all that make a bit of difference in ales.
But either way, even if you're not doing a secondary, you are racking because you're eventually putting it into a keg. You're trying to leave the trub behind when you go to a keg, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if you got a good 2-3 inches of trub, which is really possible if you don't use hop bags.
If you let it sit for a couple of weeks, that compacts down.
It'll shorten down. Okay. Yeah. And so then maybe 5.5 gallons, so that you still. What I mean is, you still want 5 gallons.
I do 5.5 gallons.
5.5. Okay.
And I fill every carboy or every keg to the very top, and I leave some behind.
Okay.
It packs down pretty good.
All right. So I'm with you. Say no to hop bags.
Yes.
Sorry, John.
No, I agree.
Sorry, B3.
I don't use hot bags.
You don't? Okay.
No.
Well, but you got your little plate thing. Well, I don't have anything.
I don't think B3 cares.
Their hot bags are like pennies.
They want you to make great beer. They're good guys.
I was dumping my kettle this particular time into the carboy, and all of my trub and my hop sediment settled to the bottom of the kettle, even though there's no point in me doing it.
You leave a bunch behind.
I couldn't do it. That's what I'm saying. I couldn't leave it behind because there was still liquid in there, and I was like, I can't. It's liquid. It's wort. I don't want to leave it. So I dumped the whole damn thing into my carboy. But I don't care.
If you do that versus not doing that, I've tried it, and
no difference.
The one with all the hop bits in it is hoppier.
Okay.
I just did that not too long ago, where one was all clear wort, and one had all the hop sludge in it. About half the carboy was hop sludge. You could see bits all the way,
Right.
And the one with the hop bits was much hoppier.
Okay.
And the other one was not as hoppy. It was more malty.
Okay.
So, but they were both great. So, do it.
Do
Who
it.
cares?
Dump it in there and then just, 5.5 gallons.
It's going to be great beer.
Here's a quick one. What do you fill your airlock with? Sanitizer, water, or vodka?
I've tried all.
Okay.
And, if I have sanitizer handy, I'll throw sanitizer in there.
Okay.
But otherwise, I just water.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I always do sanitizer.
Don't fill them up too much.
Okay.
If you fill them up too much, it'll pull back sometimes if it chills down. But just fill it until it just barely covers the bubbler, and you can use water. It's outgoing. It's not no bugs are like crawling in there. It's you can skip the airlock and stuff a piece of foil over the top of your carboy if you want.
Okay.
It's really not the big deal. I use airlocks though, but
I got 2 more questions I'm going to do. One's a real nice one that you're going to be able to finish with, and one I don't know who it's directed to. It came in earlier, and I just want to know: do you drink a lot too? It was to Jamil. Do you drink a lot too, and how much?
That's a good question.
They already know about me, right?
I actually don't drink that much. When my Keystone Light drinker buddy from down the street comes down, I tend to get just totally blasted.
Not with his Keystone Light, though.
No, we drink Quivering Quail and Arrogant Bastard, and he loves Keystone Light and he loves Arrogant Bastard.
Okay,
so go figure. That's how I knew that Keystone Light question.
It's a strong
difference. Especially since I have my gallbladder out, I'm drinking 2 pints a month.
Oh, right.
This is a special event right now with you, then.
Yeah, I enjoy the judging and all that, and I enjoy tasting my beers, but I've stopped drinking as much as I did. Just, I get kids, and I want to set a good example and all that stuff, and I don't want to get a DUI and all that. Especially today, I'm okay, I got to sit here for a couple hours after the show, make sure I'm sober,
which is just fine by us, by the way.
Oh yeah, I know.
Well, if you were John, I'd call you a sissy, but since you had your gallbladder out and you do have to drive home and you do got kids, I'm going to give you props and respect for
come up to my place
back.
and we'll get blasted.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll go to the cellar and we'll clear it out
on the planet.
Did you hear that, cellar?
Okay, you give me the date. I'm asking for off work.
Anytime.
You're going to quit.
I'm going to quit anyway, so tomorrow?
Done.
All right. Okay, so here's the last question for you, and then we're going to wrap things up. If you can name one thing, this was from Fancy Moo Pants in the chat room. Let me do that real quick. You're right, Jamil. Jamil was waving things in front of my face. I said earlier that we would do a twist on the Stump the Brewer. So here's the deal. We're going to stump the listener today. And you have your choice, and we want to take a caller. John, you got to get out of here, you're saying?
Yeah.
Where do you got to go?
7 minutes, 10 minutes.
Come on, you're all right, buddy.
You're gonna lose that girl.
She's fine.
John.
She's going to be angry, huh?
No, what? I can't?
Yeah,
why is that?
You got to stay.
All right,
here we go. So what we're going to do, instead of the regular Stump the Brewer, we're going to twist it around and we're going to play Stump the Listener. Except that we'll give you a choice. We want to take a caller. Excuse me. 888-401-BEER. So start dialing. You're going to have your choice. You can either answer the question yourself or you can defer it to John. and see if John can answer it.
I think you want to defer to John.
And Jamil is the one who brought the questions in today. Not to avoid your stumping him, because I think everybody knows he competed quite well last time. But I thought that it would be quite fun, and so he brought in some questions. So we want to ask you this week. And if either you get the right answer or John gets the right answer, you get the prize. And we got 2 things left to give away. Jamil brought in a Sierra Nevada shirt and a calculator. What's the calculator exactly?
It's John Palmer's brewing calculator. It's really cool. It'll help you with your hops and gravity and stuff like that. It's really great. John Palmer's a great guy too. So
it is cool, and you can dial it right into everything you're doing. It's a really quick reference slide rule, so it's going to help you out a ton. So a great prize, 888-401-BEER. We want a caller. We're going to play Stump the Listener this week. Or Stump John. The phone's ringing right now, so we'll do that. As the phone's being answered, Jamil, I want you to ponder this question so you can give us a proper answer, because this is how we're going to end the show. If you can name one thing that you changed in your brewing process that really changed the quality of your beer, tell us that one thing. So think about that as we do this Stump the Listener, and we'll get that answer to close the show. We got a caller here, Daniela? Yes. All right, let me get him on. You hung up on them, probably. Are you there?
I am here.
Who are we talking to?
This is Gupja.
Gupja?
Matt.
Jesus.
Matt. All right, Matt. Which question do you want John to answer? Because John's going to do either a style question or a brewery question.
A brewery or brewing question? Did you
brewery.
Style?
Doesn't matter, Matt. Bring it on.
Brewery.
Yeah, it was a style question or a brewery question.
I'll take the brewery question.
All right. So, John, what brewery includes a gargoyle in their logo?
Oh, that's so
Stone
easy.
Brewing.
Stone Brewing.
All right, John.
There you go.
So, you want the brewing calculator or the T-shirt? It's a Sierra Nevada. You know what? Pale Ale or Porter Stout T-shirt.
I'll take the brewing calculator.
The calculator.
Yeah.
You don't have one already, do you?
You can pick that up at the shop.
You don't? Okay. Yeah, we're not shipping it to you, Matt.
I can pick it up at the shop?
Yeah.
Yep.
How are you, buddy?
I'm good. You?
I'm doing all right.
Actually, I'm sick today.
You are?
You sound sick.
I picked up a cold or something, but...
so it's not mental? Or?
Yeah.
Well, that goes without saying.
Yeah, right.
Hey, you know what? You guys, you might as well just admit this is a 3-hour show. When's the last time you've gone less than 3 hours?
I know, you're right. We try so hard, but it ends up, there's so many questions to get to.
And I can't shut up, that's the problem.
Yeah, you're right, Matt. We're going to start posting it that way. It's a 3-hour show.
Right.
You know what's weird? Is that in the mornings on Sunday, I spend the entire day Sunday. This isn't a 3-hour thing for me. I'm here all day working on this, and I'm working on content and trying to make sure that we can keep it action-packed for the whole time.
Excellent job.
And I actually stress about it, whether or not we have enough content. And Matt's absolutely right. It's ridiculous for me to do that because I'm worried about content for a 2-hour show, and we're never under 3 hours anymore.
No. Right.
So I should probably relax a little more on Sundays and just, get there.
Hey, you should know that some of the chat room guys went over to Beer Pal today.
Oh yeah,
during the show to flick some shit
Smack
over there.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh
That's
man,
cool.
What did they do?
It was Lufa who went over there, and he says he kept getting bumped off the site, so I don't know what he actually was able to do. But.
We have like a whole team.
Boy.
Hey, they're not beer pals, I'll tell you that much. They're not all about the love.
It's going to be like
That's absolutely true.
We're going to start the first official beer war.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that. That's funny though, Travis. It's all
I'd like to meet the owner.
He was a nice guy. I got a message from him too, actually, after you did, Matt.
Yeah.
He sent me a message, but
pitching, catching, or.
But you know what he eventually ended up doing? This is why I stopped trying to even communicate with those people. He and I had come to an arrangement whereby we could sort of promote the show there.
Oh, okay.
And then after that, he went ahead and changed all my posts.
Yeah.
Putting in inaccurate links to the show and changed the name and all that. Oh, well, you and I emailed about that, right?
Yeah.
But
no, I'm glad you're saying it. You go ahead.
Well, I mean, if the owner of the site is going to, pull that kind of crap, then so
he doesn't like beer. Then
it's all bad.
It wasn't nice. He's absolutely. Here's what he did. He left the posts as they were, but every time that Matt mentioned thebrewingnetwork.com, he substituted that with adlink.com or adware.com, so that if you clicked on it, you went to like a total spyware adware site. Which was about the worst thing you could have done to the thing.
The heck with those guys.
Exactly. Like, really what you could... So we ended up going back and saying, hey, please just delete all our posts. Just take them all off. Yeah. We don't want them anything. Like, he was very amicable in his email to me and to Matt, and then he went and he put in those ad link things instead of brewing, like kind of to say, hey, here's an advertisement, and there's totally ads and ads. Like, we might as well have changed all the words to ads.
One of these guys, you know?
Beer Pal owner, you're depriving the rest of the beer industry from free information.
You know what? Those guys, they're not interested. They're in such a little incestuous group. That's all they. They're like so small town. They don't want to know what's going on outside.
Yes,
let's live in Utah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Well, hey.
All right, guys. Good show.
B3 will support you.
You stay strong, Matt.
Oh yeah.
All right, we'll see you later.
All right, bye bye.
All right. So. He's going to get we got a shirt to give away. So one more call, 888-401-BEER. Jamil's got another question, and if you can call in that. While we're waiting for a phone call, why don't you go ahead and answer the one thing that changed your brew process, Jamil?
The biggest thing was the starters. You know, focusing on fermentation, I would say. You know, that was my epiphany was, fermentation is everything.
Okay.
And, my first step in realizing fermentation was making a starter.
Okay.
So do the starters, make sure you're pitching plenty of healthy yeast.
Right.
Sanitation, that's what it's all about. All this focus on mash and grains and all that, who cares? Until you got fermentation down, don't focus on that stuff.
Okay.
Brew extract until you understand all the aspects of fermentation.
Okay. Because then you're getting into a lot of complicated all grain things, and
you
gotta
that's
focus
great.
on that.
That's wonderful, but
you need to know this part first.
Yep.
Okay.
That'll make the difference.
So there you go. The one thing that changed was doing these starters and properly utilizing your yeast. All right, we do have a caller in, so we can wrap it up, John. Yeah, I see you over there. You're getting all restless. Look at you. You're worried about the wrath you're going to get when you get to where you got to go.
Take somebody from the chat.
Look at that look on his face. Come on. All right, that wasn't a caller asking a question.
Somebody stepping up on the chat room to...
We'll give you a minute or so, and then we're just going to wrap it up. How about that? What I was going to mention earlier, I'll mention it now, and then we'll talk about it next show, too. Remind me, John.
Okay.
I got to put it in my thing. Just go check this out. It's one of our forum members. Check out his brew truck. He's our forum member named Brew Truck Chris. Go to wilsonbrewing.com. This guy built a 50-gallon system out of a pickup truck, a Dodge pickup truck. And he's just kind of helping facilitate like the local brew community. And he's like, hey, anybody want to brew today? I'll drive to wherever you are and we'll brew 50 gallons.
Awesome.
So, it's just cool. So check out wilsonbrewing.com. He's one of our users on the forum, and I thought he was real cool. And I didn't get a chance to talk about the whole thing, so we'll do it in a couple weeks because I want to talk about it and look at the website with you listeners. It's really cool. But he built a brew truck, which I think is just a great, we're all building gadgets and doing this. This guy built a brew truck. So that's cool. wilsonbrewing.com. He's one of our members. We got a listener, Daniela? Okay. No, don't hang up yet. Okay, there you go. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Hello, it's Troy.
Troy, what's happening? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from the Bay Area here.
All right, nice. Hey, we've talked to you before, right, Troy?
Yeah,
all right, cool.
Troy Federson.
All right, nice. Are you ready to play the game?
All right.
Sure, what do I got to do?
Well, you want to... we'll do it in combination. You or John get to answer.
Right. We'll let John go first, because I just want to prove John knows quite a lot about beer and brewing and styles and all that. And,
all right.
His
I'm sure
participation
in
Beer Jeopardy hasn't been that great, but John's a very sharp, very, very nice guy. So
that's true.
All right, John is going to answer this question for you so you can win a Sierra Nevada Brewing T-shirt.
Right.
Name the 4 members of the bottom fermented Bock family.
Ooh, John.
Bottom fermented only.
833 German Bock?
No, the styles.
The styles.
The styles.
Doppelbock?
Yes.
Traditional Bock?
Yes, there's 2.
Let me think here.
John.
Lager styles?
John.
Exactly. See, he understood this.
Munich Helles?
The lager says Bock family.
Bock family. Well, I used the Bock in my Helles.
Yes. Well,
it's not a beer though. The Helles is a Helles.
What kind of Bock is a Helles?
It's a light lager.
Or a Hellesbach.
Or a Hellesbach,
right? Okay, all right, so there's 3.
Would an Eisbach count?
Yeah.
Yeah, what about Icebox?
There you go.
There you go.
4.
That's 4.
Congratulations.
Johnny P. Yeah.
Staying alive.
Not only is he under pressure, he's worried about how his girlfriend's going to punch him in the nose because he's late right now.
No,
let's hope it's a nose.
All right. You win a shirt, buddy.
Awesome, I got one already, but it's almost all worn out.
Oh, sweet. There you go. Now you got
another one.
Freshly renewed one.
And we're not shipping that one either.
Jamil Saint Chef. All right. You know the deal. You got to go back in the chat room and talk to Daniela, and she'll tell you what to do.
Or can I just pick it up at the B3 store? I mean,
yeah, pick it up.
I will have it
John will be wearing it.
All right, there you go. Pick it up from B3.
Okay.
All right, cool. Thanks for the call.
All right, bye.
We'll see you. Hey, nice work, John.
Thanks.
All right, I'll let you guys go. Huh?
Well, next time when Jamil's on, we'll talk about temperature and ales versus lagers. And
okay. Yeah, we did a good job talking temperature. We just did, we stuck to ales, so we'll go lagers next time. How about that?
Great show.
Cool. Yeah, it was
very informative.
Yeah, all information. How about that?
Yeah.
All right, so I thought about ending with more blues, but I just can't break away from tradition today.
Oh, you love that song.
You gotta do the homebrew song, right?
Yeah. Yes, you do.
We're doing the homebrew song. I'll play blues after it. How about that?
Yeah,
I'll put on Daniela. God, what are you?
You're not even from this country.
Every show you get bitchier and bitchier. Yeah. Every time you got something else to say. Give her the microphone so that she doesn't feel so helpless. Every time it's something else.
Well, you're wondering why?
Yeah.
Really? Listen to you, and then you'll know. Well, I just want to say thank you to Jamil for coming by tonight and sharing his awesome wisdom about beer with us. It was really good. And I'm really happy about the chat room tonight, too. Those guys are just awesome. I love them.
Cool.
And there was one girl tonight in the chat room, too. Philippa. Yeah.
Brewer?
Yeah, brewer herself. And she actually does have awesome answers very often. She's totally cool. And I believe she's from Australia.
What's her name?
Philippa.
I like that.
And I love that too, so that is great. Great.
I'm telling you what, if there's one thing wrong with homebrew culture and beer culture in general, it's not enough women involved.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's that right now it's too gendered.
Yep.
And a lot of half of my communication studies are gender studies. I love it when women become empowered and involved in things that are traditionally known as male gendered things, because they shouldn't be. They never should be. So the more females you can get involved in anything that is considered a male gendered things,
break the mold,
the better it is. And it just adds to it. It makes it a better thing. So hey,
you sound like a female yourself, dude.
Sometimes I am like a pussy.
You are. You're a diverse girl than I am, really.
He just seems rational.
No, that was a good statement. And for closing tonight, I just want to say that all my sympathy is with New Orleans.
Thank you. And ours too. And again, to our users who are out there, and Smurf or Smurfy, I'm not sure how he pronounces it, who's apparently an EMT out there. Hope we hear from him soon. I'll keep kind of doing little calls to him in the forum, and maybe he'll get a chance eventually. So yes, our hearts are out to that, and we're very sorry. No show next week. Also,
yeah.
So you guys remember that there will be no show next week. I'll work on a greatest hits for you guys, where I'll try to splice together some funny stuff. You can be sure that Jamil will be on the greatest hits cut if I get that up, and then some other funny moment, and probably like 5 minutes of the drunken show, like probably the 5 minutes where I get taken down by the CHP officer.
That was awesome.
Oh, maybe cut that in there, and a few other things.
Where you're turning the dock down on the pot in the back.
That was awesome. That had to be done.
You can hear him screaming in the back.
Yeah. Don't make me come over this desk. That's his favorite saying. So there you go. No show next week, but we will be back in full effect and stronger than ever the week after that.
And that will be 21st Amendment.
That's on the show? Okay,
yeah.
21st Amendment will be on that show. I'll update the events page so you can go look there. I'll update the archives page. Last week's archive has been edited, so it will be up there probably by tomorrow also. And this week's archive will be available the following week. So there you go. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back in 2 weeks with 21st Amendment. Jamil, we appreciate you covering for us and just coming in and hanging out.
Thanks for having me. Yeah. I really appreciate it.
All right, cool. So, hey, good things for the Brewing Network in the future, and hopefully much better things for the people who need it in our country and everywhere else, too. It's the Brewing Network, our Sunday show. We'll be back. Hang in there. We'll see you later.
Pale ale is a friend of mine, and I sure like good barley wine. Chocolate porter, cherry stout, don't you know what I am talking about? Don't you give me that American crude, boys, I want a real homebrew. Homebrew, don't you really love it? Homebrew, can't get enough of it. Homebrew, it blows my mind. I love homebrew all the time. Yeah, I think I have me, well, I have me one right now. They should know how to get down. Double and triple on my best friend. I think I'll have them all over again. But don't you give me that American crude, boys, I want a real homebrew. Homebrew, don't you really love that homebrew? Can't get enough of it. Homebrew, it blows my mind. I love homebrew all of the time. Yeah, I think I'll have me, well, I'll have me one right now. Give me a wheat beer on a hot summer day. A box will do me when the skies are gray. I'll take a Belgian brew anytime, and the women sings and lambic fine. But don't you give me that American crude, boys, I want a real homebrew. Homebrew, don't you really love that homebrew? Can't get enough of it. Homebrew, it blows my mind. I love homebrew all of the time. Yeah, I think I'll have me, well, I'm the one right